Okay, I believe that I'm live. I'll let you look at this handling Brandom Shipping Company van that I got yesterday for just walking around. I thought at a thrift store. This is my handling van. Today I'm going to be working on possibly Big Mac still, and probably James. I worked on Edward on my last stream, Vasher. That was fun. I didn't finish Edward on stream, but I did finish Edward. I also weathered Salty and Stanley. Donald and Douglas. James is tender. And here's James. Donald. You can't see Donald. But here's Douglas. Donald. And here's, everyone's been waiting for the Edward. Throw James over there. We'll throw the two it didn't do customs on back there. Handle over there. All right, here's Edward. My Northwestern Edward. Finished him. Oh, the tender's backwards. See, taillight. I added taillights to all the engines. Here's Henry's tender. Back at top, back at Percy and Oliver. Percy, I made really, really dirty. Thomas. Here he is. Taillight on the back. Is it tail lamp? It's tail lamp, not tail light. I'm used to saying stuff about cars. Yeah. So we're gonna be working on this guy today. You know, it'd be nice to have all the engines that I've completed in the background, just like watching. Oh, Asher. Henry, Edward, Thomas. I'm gonna put them in numerical order. We got Percy, Toby, and then Don, Douglas, and Oliver. After I do James, all I gotta do is complete Gordon and Duck, which I have to get a new Gordon and Duck to do this. We got engines 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11. And we're going to have number 5 in probably a couple hours. I mean, we have number 5 now. We got James right here. But we don't have him in the style that we want him for my series. He has appeared like this in my series, just in the background, not as a main character. But in the first episode, you'll see James in it like this. But everything after it, you should see him like. Here, I'll just get Edward. You'll see him like Edward. Probably gonna invert and do the red, do blue stripes and red lining. And then the gold dome, obviously. They got the Northwestern on the tender, 5 on the side of the cab. But yeah, James is going to be a lot, not necessarily a lot harder, but harder to make because I could take Edward apart. With James, here, I'll pull Edward up. I could take Edward apart. See, he's got screws. But James, screws on the tender as well. Focus. See, screws on the tender. James has screws on the tender. Focus. You could probably, James has screws on the tender. Just take my word for it. But he doesn't have screws on his front, on his the engine part of him, because this was actually a tender from a what was the pack called? I don't remember, but it was like a James and the Sweet Cars pack, and that's what this tender's from. The James had little the James had little flecks on him, like sprinkles. So I swapped him out for an old style James. And I think it looks pretty good. Originally with James, I was just gonna wash the or not wash, but take the number off with nail polish remover, and then paint the Northwestern on, and then the 5 up there. But I want them to be accurate to all of the other engines. Which, when I'm done with all of them, I'm gonna give every single one a here. Let me go get the spray paint right now. I'm gonna give him a coat of this clear spray paint. And yeah, I'll give him a shiny finish. I did it for Scotsman. I'll show you what Scotsman looks like if you guys don't remember. I've showed him on stream before. That's what Scotsman looks like. He's got like a little gloss finish. I think Scotsman looks pretty good. The face is the only thing that bothers me. I don't like his face. But I could probably mold one from a Gordon or something. But yeah, they're gonna end up looking as shiny as Scotsman. Because I feel like Scotsman kind of looks like the gloss of the regular engines, if they're not dirty. James is pretty dirty, I will say. He does have a bit of shine to him, but he has been dirty with like dust and stuff that's been sitting around in my garage, because that's where I am. I'm in the garage. This is where I film. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna take the tender apart, because I mean, yeah, it helped out for Edward, but I feel like the tender's the easiest part when you're making a custom. All you gotta do is just go over it with red, and then, or whatever color you're using, and then do the lines and do the number on here. You gotta get in every little nook and cranny. Like back here is probably gonna be the hardest part, back right there. This side as well. It's gonna be hard to do, not necessarily hard, but it's gonna be rather difficult to do the lines. You can give me a resin mold of Gordon if you want. Sure, that'd be great, Asher. Maybe when you send the test models, or not the test models, your what's his name, Warrior and Billy to Lemmy, send that mold in there too, and tell Lemmy to send that out to me. It could be cheaper cost doing that or something. But yeah, this is gonna be nice. Lemmy said he'd be probably 10 minutes late. He's eating dinner. So I might just get started here with my James. And Lemmy will join in when Lemmy joins in. So let's pour. What I'm using for James is Santa Red, which is what I use for the engine's lining. The only ones I haven't used it for is Percy. His is a bit brighter. I think Henry's I use the same red as Percy as well, but I feel like it looks better with them. Just pour some red in, and that brush, not that brush. There we go. Found the brush that we want. Let's start on the tender. The tender is always the most fun to start on. Let's put Edward back in line with the others, and we'll have Scotsman. Let's have Scotsman sit on top of them all. Never mind, that's not a good idea. Let's have Scotsman push Hercules and Big Mac back a little bit. Her hand will sit over there, and Scotsman can sit next to Oliver. Oliver would probably get a little starstruck. But we'll get some paint. And here, I'm going to move the camera a bit so you can see what I'm doing. It's hard doing this on camera if you can't have your face in it here. I'm going to, I don't know. There we go. We're going to do this, and we'll do that. First coat of red on the tender. Here we go. We're in. No going back now. Actually, we probably could. We could just wipe the paint off if we wanted to. But, hey. Alrighty, we got the first coat on the tender. Now let's do first coat on James. The rusty red scrap iron himself. This is pretty much how I do my customs. I just do a rough coat on to start out, just do rough. And then I smooth it out for the second, third, fourth coat, depending on how many coats the engine needs for it to look, for the old paint not to come through. I could have taken the paint off, or used some primer, but I didn't. I don't really care if it gets on the running board or on the smoke box, because I'll be painting over that anyway. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I was gonna. What I usually do is I sand not necessarily sand, but I use a nail file. The nail file usually does pretty well, but also nail polish remover works really good for take along and take and play. If you've already painted a locomotive or like an engine, a very good way to just get the paint off. Oh, that's not good. A very good way to get the paint off of an engine that already has been painted on is for Percy. What I did, Percy was cut with like a scrap engine when I made him into this Percy. So he was all brown. I put like some not necessarily, what did I put on him? I put like a cotton ball fuzz on him to make it look like the metal was like poking out a bit and stuff. So what I did was I ran it under hot water and with soap and like a toothbrush, like an old toothbrush. you can brush off all of the paint. I did that for Donald and Douglas as well. So they were painted. They're painted previously as well. I feel like this red fits James very well. And here's Lemmy. I can't hear you, Lemmy. Can you hear me? Oh no, is it me? Or is it Lemmy? Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Oh no. Here, let me check. Let me check.
All right, what about now?
There we go. I can hear you now.
Ah, brilliant. So, how are you doing, Scottish?
I'm doing well.
Ah, very good. What are you working on there? I mean, obviously James, but like.
Yeah. So I've showed you what my engines look like for my series, correct? Like what they're gonna look like. So I did Edward. I did Edward the other day on stream, and I did Donald and Douglas.
Ah, that's cool.
So this is what I'm going for.
So you went for black with Donald and Douglas.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about. I might do it again and do blue. I'll see how it goes.
They look good in either. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like both colors do feel like them, just in different. It's like both colors work for them.
Yeah.
They both kind of. They just look good in both.
I just got a surf handle in a van yesterday at a shop I went to, new pretty much.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's nice.
I'm trying to get my workbench all organized and figured out because my room is a mess. I'm trying to figure out where to put everything. For the stream the other day, my 10th anniversary thing, I had to literally kind of restructure the entire room. Because I wanted the best angle on camera. So what I did was I literally moved the workbenches and I moved all the furniture and stuff off screen, and then I put up the sky backdrop, and I tried to make it look as good as possible. So I just kind of threw everything to the side of the room people couldn't see, and now I have to kind of put everything back together. So
I bet what we couldn't see on camera looked really there was boxes piled up on everything.
Yeah, it was exactly that way. And that's why it was hidden cleverly off screen. But yeah. Happy early birthday.
Thank you. 1 week away from today.
Yeah. Let's see. What do I want to work on? I definitely want to work on something. Probably OJ. Return to him. Let's see. But I don't dare bring him up onto the workbench until it's clean, because his parts are going to get lost in all the nonsense that is scattered across this surface.
With paddle wheels.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve the Weave. Someone's in chat. We got action. Someone else. Steve the Weave.
Steve the Weave. That's a name.
It is a name. Oh yeah, I told you I was going to tell you from the stories that my friend told me on that tour I went on.
That's right. Yeah, please do go into detail on those because they sound interesting.
So, like I said, my town, city, whatever you want to call it, it's technically a city. We live on a river, and it was, for Oregon, it's Oregon City. I'll just let people know that. It's pretty big, so you're not going to come find me. But that was the capital of the state back in the day. It was the biggest like city in the whole state, and this is like the land, like it was the capital. It was the capital. So it was like the big point, the big place. You know.
Right.
Oh, thank you, Ashley, for promoting the stream. Thank you. But so I'll get on to the first story. So there's this giant falls where I live. It's not giant, but back in the day it was giant. And so there's steamboats because there was a giant like waterfall where in that river where I am, and we got power from it.
Right.
And that's how we used to power the town. Now it's through all like wind turbines and stuff. But
that's cool.
Yeah. And steamboats used to come up and down the river all the time. Not when I was born, not obviously, but
like in the distant past.
Yeah, but like in the early 1900s, obviously, and late 1800s. But in the late 1800s, there were two things that on that tour that my friend told us about happened with the boats. And one of them was one of the boats went off of the falls.
Oh my God, like literally like over a waterfall?
Yeah. Only one person survived.
Oh my God.
All the rest died. There were like 15 people on it.
Jesus Christ. So what type of boat was it? So it was one of those big river boats that like transports like large amounts of people?
Yeah.
Good Lord. Oh my God. That is crazy.
So that happened. And then technically this one isn't about our town, but it's the town over. A steamboat, it was like on its maiden voyage, and it pulled into like the port, and it exploded. The boiler exploded.
I have heard that happened a lot in those days. Like the early steam boilers, they were very unstable. It's really like it makes sense when you think about it, because like steam pressure, I mean, there's all this pressure in this confined space. It just needs like one little leak, and then it
like that's it. Mm-hmm. Hey, okay, Lemmy. So,
yeah,
I was talking about how I might get a new face for my Flying Scotsman back there in the background, and Asher said that he would make like a mold out of a Gordon one for me, and then send it to and Coast Guard too. But if you could send that to me after he sends that to you, that'd be nice. I just threw that out there because it might be easier on the shipping cost.
Yeah, that's true, but that's also like a year away. So, you're gonna have to wait a while.
Yeah.
And if it's what you mean, like the Tugs TWR shipments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to like that. That would be a good way to get stuff in between each other, is to kind of send it to me, and then I could send back out to other people. The only problem is that it's like, I think we'll probably be shipping stuff out around January, and so I mean that you've got some time to wait if we do that. But if you're willing to do that, then yeah.
Yeah. Well, Warrior, Coast Guard, and Billy are basically almost done. That's what Asher said. So,
Warrior, Coast Guard, and Billy. That's great. Yeah, I haven't even seen Billy yet. I saw the first one you made, Asher, but I haven't seen the new one. Warrior and Coast Guard look amazing, though.
Are you into paranormal stuff, Lemmy?
Who, me? Or are you asking someone in the chat?
Yeah. No, I was asking you.
I'm not really like into it. I mean, there have been times where I've like sat down and looked at like YouTube videos that are like kind of ghost hunter things, and like those are cool. But the thing about me is if I focus on like creepy stuff for too long, I start like looking over my shoulder. Like I start like
Yeah.
I get to the point where I'm just kind of like freaking myself out. So I never get too into like that sort of thing. But I've watched videos like that before. It's interesting, but I don't think there are ghosts or anything like that. It is entertaining though, for sure. Kind of the search for stuff like that. There's like a lot of good, interesting media about it. What about you?
Yeah. I personally do think house. My great grandpa actually died in our house.
Wow. So how long have you lived in this house? Like your family?
He died when I was 3. And we moved in there when I was 5. So
Oh, okay.
10 years ago now. 10 years ago.
I assumed it was like I assumed it was like you had the house for like generations, and it's like because you say great grandpa, that's like crazy. I never met my great grandpa. That's pretty nuts. It's like interesting that in theory, like if you have kids and then your kids have kids and then your kids have kids, and that all happens like every 20 years, then yeah, technically you could have like a great grandfather that is alive at the same time as his like great grandson, which is kind of like crazy that works timeline wise. But it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't really believe in the paranormal. I mean, I think that like a lot of the time it's just us trying to kind of like explain things that we don't really understand. But then again, I know some people claim to have had like really, really freaky experiences. So like, maybe there is some stuff that we can't explain that like has to have that explanation, and I just haven't witnessed it yet. But I mean, I think usually it's like there's a more realistic explanation for most things. I would guess. Because it seems like every time there's like a story about like there are a lot of, it's interesting, there are a lot of businesses that are like kept running by the fact that there's some sort of ghost attraction, right? Like people keep saying there are certain places in the world people visit because they know they're known to be haunted, right? So like if you work at the Loch Ness monster gift shop, you kind of have to keep saying that it's true, even if you don't believe it anymore. So it's difficult because a lot of paranormal stuff is like that, where it's just kind of like a ruse. But then, there's other stuff where people are genuinely convinced and have had weird experiences, and it's like, well, what's that about? So it's like, it's kind of that sort of, like, which is it,
Yeah. So this is my Big Mac so far.
That looks great. Has it changed at all since I last saw it?
No, it has not. So I'm going to cut the head down a little bit. It sounds very morbid, but
yeah, well, it's all in the name of science.
yes.
Not really. There's nothing scientific about what we're doing. So I think the only part I still need to make for OJ is the stack. I think everything else is kind of made, and after that point, I can start painting and stuff.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Scottish? Scottish! Do you hear me? Scottish! Does the audience hear me? Does anyone hear me? Asher, in the chat, do you hear me? All right. Oh, now he's gone. Okay. So Scottish has ceased to exist. Very tragic. But I'm sure he will be paranormally resurrected in a moment. Trying to tie it back to the conversation in an effective manner. Ah, there you are.
There we go.
All right.
Sorry, my friend called me, and it made me. Yes, I can hear you. My friend called me, and it made me log out of StreamYard. So.
Yeah.
So as soon as she called me, I just hung up.
Yeah, that's happened to me before.
This is way more important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I always feel bad about that. It's like when I'm in like the middle of like there were a lot of times where like Will calls me all the time. Will Thomas. And he calls me a lot. And we have like just kind of on the fly conversations about Tugs TWR and about other stuff. And mostly other stuff, honestly. But we have a lot of those conversations, and they're great. But sometimes he calls me, and I'm like in the middle of like an important call, or like I'm talking to like I'm like maybe I'm kind of done with like the Tugs TWR interviews, so I don't have to do really those anymore. But like maybe in the future at some point. But for now, I'm done with them.
Yeah.
But for a while, I was doing those all the time, and so sometimes I'd be in the middle of one, and then like Will would call me, and I'm like, okay, I've got it, and I would just immediately hang up on him, and then I'd feel so bad. I'd just be like, I just hung up on it. I was just like, no, and slam the door in his face. It's just so mean. You kind of have to if you're like doing like if you're in the middle of something and you just cannot sit down and talk with a person. You're just like, no, and then you're gonna explain it to them later.
Yeah.
Like, this is why I hung up on you.
Like, sorry, I was doing a live stream where I was building a model boat with a face.
It's a very specific thing that's going on.
You wouldn't understand. It's important.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Tomorrow's the last day of holiday for me, but I'm home-based learning for like 4 weeks. That's fun, Asher. Too bad their holiday's ending though.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Should I make this? Sorry, let me continue.
No, feel free to cut me off. I mean, that's not it's the only way to get a word in edgewise with me.
How should I make this the head a little smaller?
Let's see. Could I see it from the side? Yeah, I would say. Let's see. Well, for one thing, you need the. Are you going to add the thing at the back that like goes the kind of ledge?
Oh yeah, totally.
So that's the question: are you going to cut that out of that, or are you going to add it onto the back?
I'm going to add it on.
Then that definitely needs to be a lot shorter. Okay. So I mean, I would say maybe take off like a centimeter of their overall length, and also make it a little bit narrower. So like just kind of shrink it in general, but also shrink the length a lot more than the other dimensions, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But honestly, what I would recommend, if I were to do it, I would probably not add the back part on. I would probably just cut out of the existing wheelhouse and then use that, create a ledge that way, because it would have a smooth side surface like to the side of the wheelhouse. But it's kind of up to you. Either way is gonna do it. So it's really a matter of what approach you want to take.
Yeah.
Do you have pictures up while you're working on this?
Nope.
Yeah.
I probably should, but
yeah, those would help tremendously. Because basically what I'm doing right now is doing the job of the photographs, where I'm just telling you what he's supposed to look like. And it's like, really what I do when I make a model is I use a lot of references. And I literally, like, if I have a picture of Top Hat and a picture of, and then I have my Top Hat, I literally like hold him up in the exact same angle and like rotate the head and make him look like exactly like the picture. And I look back and forth several times and I'm like, okay, is that the same or not? And then I'll be like, okay, I need to tweak the head a little bit, or I need to tweak the wheelhouse, which are the same thing. You get my point. It's like, I use a lot of references, and they're kind of a necessity. You kind of have to, like, if you don't have reference pictures at the ready, it's very difficult to like know what to do, because I don't remember. At this point, I probably remember what all the tugs look like from memory, but that's because I've made them so many times based on a lot of references. So references are pretty key. Yeah, ideally it'll get to the point where people aren't just coming to me asking like, "Hey Lemmy, how are you gonna how do I go about making this like model?" But it'll be more like people coming to me like, "Lemmy, there's this one specific problem that I cannot figure out. Like, I've tried making the head wider, I've tried making it narrower, I've tried making it taller. None of that did anything. I don't know how to make it look right. Please help." Eventually that's where we're gonna be, where it's like I don't need to literally say like, okay, first make it narrower, then make it shorter, then do this, then do that, then undo that, then do that. So it's like I'm hoping to get to that point with people, but with the main cast, we definitely want to get them right, because I'm hoping that we use these same models for a really long time. I'm hoping that once we've made the main cast, these models are going to be used for the whole duration of the series. And so, it would be pretty cool, right? If because we'll have props, from this series that I could in theory, I could take them to like train shows and stuff, I could put them on.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. That would be awesome. Right. It's like, these are the ones in the series, not just, this isn't just any old, custom model. This is like the model that was on screen the whole time. It's really cool to do that sort of thing. So you brought up the paranormal earlier. So do you watch paranormal YouTube videos and stuff? What are you what interests you about it?
I don't know what interests me about it. I feel like it's just a really cool topic to learn about.
It is. I think that it's because the thing is, it enters that usually when you learn about something, when you sit down and learn about a topic, it's already all figured out for you. There's not really any room for you to theorize. But what's cool about paranormal stuff is it's all mystery. That's kind of the draw of it. It's okay, we have all these alleged things that happened. Now it's up to you to decide if you think they are really true or not, or what the theory is, or what's going on here, or trying to make sense of it. It's like a puzzle. And that's kind of cool, because not everything's like that. It's interesting.
Very, very interesting.
It's kind of interesting. It's something that MK told me a while back, where he said that and I kind of already knew this based on the way he kind of approaches tugs, but he said that the main thing that interests him and the thing that he loves about it is that he can kind of assemble it like a puzzle. He kind of approaches it and he learns, he's figuring out how everything ties together, and the order of the episodes and how the thing was actually made is more interesting to him than actually enjoying the show itself for what it is. And I might be quoting that slightly wrong, but the point being is that he really loves dissecting the show and figuring out how it goes together, right? And that's interesting, because that's not the way I approach tugs. For me, I kind of do the opposite, where I just look at the general. Tugs gives me a feeling, I watch tugs and I just get hit with this wave of, oh my God, that's amazing, right? And then I try to kind of create that feeling. And I do that. Sometimes I recreate it very closely. Other times, I imagine when we do tugs Tug's TWR, that's going to be just we can change things as much as we want. I mean, we could get rid of half the Starfleet if we wanted to for no reason. We're not going to, but we could. There's no rules.
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but we were talking about getting rid of someone in a couple of years.
Yeah, and even if you did spoil it, I mean, odds are it'd probably be different in a year anyway. Because that's the thing, is that, like, I feel like we're throwing a bunch of ideas at the wall right now, and it's some of them will stick and some of them will be totally replaced later on. I find it interesting that I have full confidence, unlike pretty much all the other projects I've worked on in the last several years, which you've really not seen any of them. No one has. I feel like this one, I have full confidence is actually going to get totally finished. And not only that, I know that Tug's TWR is going to be finished, but I also know that it's going to be like a phenomenon. Like, once it's done, it'll be this huge deal. People will love it. It'll make so many people happy. Which I'm just so excited for. And what's interesting to me, Scottish, is the fact that you and I are having this conversation in front of a relatively small audience. Asher's in the chat, and he's part of it as well, so he knows everything that we're talking about. It's like this conversation. I've revealed so much of our game plan already to the public, technically, and still, like, because I haven't shouted it from the rooftops and like marketed and advertised all of it, nobody's gonna know about it until the series comes out in like a year or so. And once they see it, then they'll go back and see like a live stream like this and be like, what the hell? He talked about everything. He revealed everything that was going to go into this like a year before it happened. And like, I didn't know. How could I be so blind, But right now, like, I wouldn't be surprised if most people assume this series isn't really going to happen. I mean, that'd be a reasonable thing to expect.
I mean, you are making it, so anything's happening.
That's the thing, right? Is that, and I am astounded and very pleased that people are willing to follow me into it anyway, because it's like I've proven over and over again that I cancel projects. But here's the big difference about this one, is I'm doing it with other people. So like, whenever I'm doing it on my own, it gets canceled. But if I do it with other people, then it has a very good track record of always coming out. Character Gallery has always come out. There was like, all the collabs I was in back in 2016 came out. The crossover with Person Number 6 came out. The like all that stuff, right? That I get one other friend, and then I'm like, okay, the two of us, let's make a thing. It always works. So imagine now, 13 friends. It's gonna work. And it's gonna work 13-fold, which I cannot even imagine what that's gonna be. So it's gonna be great.
It's still so crazy to me when I think about it, like in a year, 2 years time, and like the first season's going to be out, first episode's going to be out, and it's just like, it's going to be weird, Yeah. Like, we made the models and they're going to look fantastic on screen, and you're going to do an amazing job filming and editing and everything.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, because I can't even there's going to be a point where we have a bunch of finished models that are just as finished as like Top Hat and Zach are. And they're all going to be lined up. We're going to have the whole Starfleet. It's just going to be great. I can't even, I can picture it, because, otherwise I wouldn't be striving so hard to get it out. But like, at the same time, I don't think I can fully realize how great it's going to feel once we actually make it a reality. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I know what it's going to look like, but I can't picture just the astounding feeling it's going to give me. Like, that's going to be so cool. I'll just be like, wow. Like, I knew what this was going to look like, but at the same time, I didn't like feel it until I see it. Then I'll be like, wow. Yeah. All right. OJ's funnel coming up.
So how was your 4th of July, Lemmy?
It was good. It was really good. It was a lot of fun. Had family over. It was we didn't have family over. Had family together. Had family that is always under the same roof at the same table. So that was nice. Let's see. Speaking of reference images, we weren't, but we were very much earlier. I'm going to find my OJ references I've got somewhere. How was your 4th?
My 4th was, I didn't really do anything, honestly. I pretty much just watched movies.
Yeah, but any way to celebrate.
I was going to binge all of series 20 of Thomas, but I was like, I really feel like sitting here for
I haven't watched the show in so long. Like, I haven't sat down and watched episodes in a long time. I love season 20, though. It's really...
Season 20 is great.
It really is. It was so great. That was a great era.
I almost watched all of season... Or not last night. The other night, I almost watched all of season 18.
Yeah. No, the Brenner era is just so cool. It was just...
I love it.
We can say what we will about the current era we're in, but, there is a reality. An alternate reality where we go straight from the Miller era to the Big World Big Adventures era, where it just keeps going down, and then eventually we just get to where we are now. Like, that would have been the normal trajectory, but instead we got 4 years of Brenner magic injected into the show, and that's that's
amazing.
That's pretty great. We're very lucky that happened.
Oh yeah.
Tug's only got 13 seasons, too. I can imagine Thomas, on Sodor across the Atlantic. I can imagine that when the show was canceled, he probably threw a huge fit. He's like, what do you mean it's canceled? It's like, well, not technically canceled, Thomas. We've got this other thing.
You're not in it anymore.
I'm going to sue. He'd be furious, right?
You're using my name. Well, technically not. It's All Engines Go now.
Yeah, it's like you just need,
oh my God! Imagine that's why they couldn't use Thomas and Friends. That's why they changed it to All Engines Go. They're like, Thomas goes, "I'm suing."
They were sued by a locomotive, and they had to embarrassingly just kind of move away from it. They're breathing a sigh of relief that nobody thinks Sodor is real. They're like, "Oh, thank God! If anyone knew about this, it would be in the papers. We would look like total idiots." But yeah, so Thomas sues them. They're not allowed to use the name anymore. But the thing is, Thomas is throwing a fit on Sodor. I know he is. But at the same time, imagine if 10 cents, I know we're crossing universe lines here, but just imagine if 10 cents were to see Thomas's reaction. He'd just roll his eyes like, are you kidding me? We got 13 episodes and I didn't even throw a fit. And Thomas would be like, well, of course you didn't. You didn't live to the 2000s. You were dead before it. Never mind.
I was created... Well, technically, he wasn't created in the 40s. Well, I don't even know when the E2s came out, honestly. But anyway, he was like, I was in books in 1945, and then when did the Brenner era end? 2017. By 2017, I was old and in a TV show. So I had a pretty good life, if I would say so myself.
Yeah.
You only got 13 episodes. I got 24 seasons.
Yeah, he'd spin it that way. He'd be like, well, I still did better than 10 cents. I still did better than the Tugs crew. It's interesting.
He says that in front of Big Mickey. He goes, Thomas, those are my friends.
Oh my God. But yeah, I think, we were pretty lucky, all things considered. Yeah. I do wonder, though, it occurs to me that it may be 10 or 20 years until this happens, but Thomas is way too big a brand to just die permanently.
Oh,
it has to be revived at some point. And if we live long enough, it is going to have to be revived in a way that we're satisfied with at some point. There's no way it won't happen. Give it 10, 20, 30 years, somebody's going to pick it up again. And what are they really going to model the revival after? Are they going to model it after the All Engines Go? Are they even going to model it after the Big World Big Adventures era or the CGI series? No. They're going to model it after the thing that Ringo Starr narrated. And so that's the thing that's... Stuff. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that's in the history books. And so I'm not all that worried because Thomas has made history. He's done it. He can rest on his laurels and say, you know what? Nobody's going to forget about me. And if this ever gets rebooted, people aren't going to go back to the crappy stuff. They're going to go back to the Railway series. They're going to go back to the early TV series. They're going to go back to the stuff that really made waves. And so eventually we will get a reboot that we are all happy with, I think. It'll be a while, but I think we'll get that eventually. So, I'm just going to
hope so.
Yeah.
Imagine if we do get a reboot and the first character we see on screen is like Bear or some Railway series character.
That would be so weird. Imagine that. Oh, that'd be great though. What do you think about Bear? What do you think his like personality is?
Honestly, I don't even know because I've seen so many fan series where he just has a different personality each time.
Yeah, because the thing is, the Railway series didn't really give us a lot to work with. What we know is, firstly, we know that he's loud. He growls very loudly and is embarrassed about it, and doesn't want to. It seems like he doesn't want to step on anybody's toes, but at the same time, he can't help but attract attention because he's just making this loud growl. Also he's willing to stand up to authority, on some level. Like, with D199, I don't know if it's like back on the mainland, he never had the guts to stand up to him, but then the steam engines gave him kind of the backing he needed to finally do it, or if it's that he's always stood up to D199. But either way, it says a lot about his character that he's lived on BR his entire life, surrounded by diesels, being encouraged to have this kind of prejudiced mentality towards steam engines, and then the second he arrives on the island, surrounded by steam engines he doesn't know, and D199 starts threatening to take the railway over, 7101 stands up to him, just straight up. And it's like, that takes a lot of guts to reject everything you've ever been taught and say, you know what, this is wrong. And to do it for engines you don't even know, you've never even met. He risks his reputation and risks everything to stand up for what he believes in. So from the minute he arrives, I think that he is a Sodor engine. He has that moral constitution, that integrity that all Sodor engines have, which is why he was always destined to stay on the island from the second that he set wheel on Northwestern Metals. He was always going to be part of that family. And D199 always wasn't for the same reason. But it's interesting. If I were to write for Bear, I probably would lean into I guess I have technically before, but like that was a long time ago. If I were to write for Bear again, I would probably lean heavily into the fact that he's so loud. I always found it interesting that, the way the Railway series characterizes engines, it doesn't really it's not I see a lot of people treat a steam sound like a puffing noise, like that's some sort, like that's an engine's equivalent of kind of an unconscious noise that they make, like a sneeze or something. Like it's this kind of like weird sound that they make as they go along. And so like if Gordon might say something to Henry on the main line, but then he can't hear him because the puffing is so loud. I think that misses the point of like what engines talking really is, which the reason that Audrey wrote the Railway series the way he did is because he was trying to emphasize that the engines are talking when they puff. It's the reason why he speaks in this stunted manner where Gordon's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. That's a puffing noise. It's and it's like, that's the engines speaking is the engines making noise. They are the same thing. They're equal. And they're synonymous. And so like with Bear, it's interesting because a lot of people kind of make it out to be that, he makes this loud growl, but then he has kind of this nice soft voice where he's like, he's very polite and friendly. And honestly, I don't think he would sound that way. I think he'd sound something like this, and then immediately block off. Like, sorry, didn't mean to, but he can't help yelling because he's so loud. And you edit it so that it parallels the growls, where it's like, and he might even be, rather than talking like this, he might speak more like this. He might have a kind of a growly, grisly voice, but then when you listen to what he's actually saying, he's saying, "How did your day go, Henry? How you doing? You're one of my best friends in the world, buddy." That's, I could see him like being like that, right? Where what he says is so sensitive and sweet and nice, but his voice is so intimidating and loud because it's his engine that is kind of at work. That's the approach I might take on him. There's a million different ways to do it.
I might rename the stream Character Gallery episode 24 Bear.
Oh my god, it's funny. People always make that joke, and it's like I mean, it's just the fact that that is just my natural. That's what I talk about when I talk about Thomas, as I talk about characters. And so it's like Character Gallery spawned out of that. I'm sure some people have the notion that me and Matt just met and shook hands for the first time 5 minutes before recording episode 1, and we're like, okay.
I know that didn't happen because I know you guys were together at the Magic Railway show in 2018 and 2019. So I'm a real fan.
That's so interesting that because that's such a those were great moments, but those still were very inconsequential. If I were to speak about the moments that really shaped my friendship with Matt, they all happened far out of the public eye. Nobody saw any of it. And it's it's really interesting. I kind of know in a way how I don't want to sound like I'm gloating, like I'm famous or something. But I kind of understand. I kind of understand how the engines on Sodor feel. People come up to Gordon and they're like, "Oh, there's that time you fell in the ditch. Oh, there's that time you pulled the queen. Oh, there's that time that you that all your brothers died." Or Gordon's like, "All right, firstly, ouch. Secondly, those are only a small percentage of the things that I've done. Didn't you hear about that time that I stopped on the track points? What? What is that? Didn't you hear about the time that I pulled that long goods train all the way to Carnforth? What?
Willingly."
That's the thing, though. It's really there's. I bet 90% of Gordon's most important memories we don't even know about. We've never heard of because they weren't written about in stories, and it's just random what the people find out about and what they don't. What the fans of the Railway series actually know. You and I. We only know what Audrey chose to tell us, and it's very specific stuff. And the engines might not have picked the same stuff. Gordon certainly would not have told us about Off the Rails. He would have hidden that.
Definitely not.
Yeah. But it's interesting to me, because you know of me through Character Gallery, through what you've seen of the meetups that were publicized, through that sort of stuff, and it's it's interesting because that's such a small percentage of my life. It's actually a lot of it was not publicized. A lot of the biggest connections I have to people. It's funny. There's a lot of people who come up to me and they're like, they don't come up to me about this, but it comes up in conversation. They kind of assume that I know Enterprising Engine or that I know Turtles. Yeah. They're and I do know those people, but I haven't spoken to Enterprising in what must be 2 or 3 years at this point. Probably 2 years. And only very.
That's funny you mentioned Matt because I was just talking to him earlier.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And it's and I think a lot of people would very falsely assume that I know him better than say you do, or that I've spoken to him more times than you have, and. Maybe that's true, but at the same time, you've definitely spoken to him way more recently than I have. And, I don't know. Obviously I have great respect for Matt. But I wish I were closer with him. I wish I would spend more time with him, but, I haven't. And it's interesting because everybody kind of assumes there's this close knit circle of people that all know each other. And somebody will be like, "Hey, Lemmy, you're friends with Matt Twillman, right?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And you're friends with Train King James, right? And I'm, "Oh yeah." And you're friends with Rob, right? And I'm like, I've barely met.
Right again.
Yeah. It's just interesting. I don't. It's this kind of assumption. But yeah, Enterprising's great. And as for me and Matt Twillman, going back to the point. Me and Matt really, the reason we started Character Gallery is because we would have character conversations exactly like what you see on that show, all the time. Every day we'd have long character conversations on Skype. And it's not like we sat down and we're like, okay, now we will talk about flora. Like, no, that was never how it went. It was like we would just kind of talk about something random, and then it would kind of feed into things. Like when you and I talk Scottish. It just kind of we get to different topics. And Matt and I, our character conversations were just so interesting and so fun that we just decided we should make a show about it. It was actually Matt's idea. I'm the one who really took it and ran with it. I'm the one who made all the graphics and edit the show and that sort of thing. But Matt's
you're doing that. I thought that was Matt. No offense.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because Matt has almost no involvement. The only thing he does is obviously we record together, and he's also he's very. The way it is like Matt is, obviously he's the show's biggest cheerleader, and also he has a bunch of great ideas, and he's crucial to the show because our dynamic is just crucial, and his ideas are amazing and oftentimes even better than mine. But the thing is, he doesn't have anything to do with the editing, anything to do with the visuals, anything. Now he does get very excited about that stuff, and he pitches ideas about it sometimes, like, oh, Lemmy, maybe you should do a transition here or fade to this, or maybe you should usually it's just him being very enthusiastic. It's like, oh, I cannot wait to see a character promo of 13, right? That's going to be amazing, right? That sort of thing. So he's extremely enthusiastic about it, but also he just doesn't he has barely anything to do with the production of it. He's only involved in recording the show and also planning out what we're going to talk about and that sort of thing. But for me, I do everything else. It's all me, apart from that. But it's very much both of our show, because the heart of it, of course, is the conversation, and that is 50-50 right there. I mean, it's more like 90-10, but that's only because I talk way more than him, and then I have to edit out 40% of that because I just said way too much. But
that's what I've been wondering. I've been wondering, how long do those conversations actually last? Because we only say 45 minutes, half hour.
It really depends. There's been a few episodes that went an hour and a half. That had to have 40 minutes edited out of them. Ideally, it goes for an hour, and I edit out 10 minutes. But something I've been thinking about recently, Scottish, is that I really would like to. I want to get back to making the show, but the problem is that editing takes so goddamn long to do.
I know, dude. I hate. Yeah. Honestly, editing is my least favorite, but also my favorite part of the process of making videos.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because that's where it all comes together. But also it takes forever, So it's
it takes so long.
Yeah.
I've been editing the first episode for my series for since last 2 weeks ago. I started, and I just it takes so long.
Can I tell you an open secret?
Yes, please do.
I am working on a video right now, a story, the first one that I'll have released in several years. And this one is actually going to come out. I know, because it's a day away from being edited.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now here's the thing.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that it's so on one level, it's a good story. I'm sure when people see it, they're going to go crazy for it. They're really going to love it. However, me personally, it's not really up to my standards, because the thing is, several weeks ago, I just sat down and decided, you know what? I'm tired of waiting for all these big projects to finally culminate in something great. I'm tired of waiting for these doing all this work, and then it's all going to be done a year from now. I'm sick of that, right? So I was like, you know what? I just want to sit down and make something quick. I just want to make a story. So what I did is, I swept all my, my custom models aside, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to use standard wooden railway stuff. No custom models whatsoever. And so I basically did that. I got out my wooden railway trains and just used standard stuff, and and I made a story. And it ended up being a very elaborate. I'm describing it like it was only a 3-minute long story that's really just very basic, but I'm saying it's not elaborate, but really it is, because most people will see it. It's 30 minutes long. It's a pretty dramatic story at parts. Yeah, I mean, it's it's well produced. It's there's a lot of good elements to it. So I think people are going to really like it, right? But here's my dilemma, Scottish. You want to hear my dilemma?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my dilemma is that I, on one hand, know that people will love this story, and also I know that it's actually going to get finished because I decided to forgo all of the custom model making I always do. And that, so it was done a lot faster. It's almost done. But the other side of it is I've realized throughout this process that even though it has succeeded, even though this thing is about to come out, and even though people will love it, I don't love it. And the reason is, once you make a bunch of custom models, you just cannot go back.
Honestly,
I love
so much
building.
fun. I like it more than doing my series.
I'm glad you're in that position, because for me, I think what I do like most is making a series. I think I do prefer. It's not like I like filming necessarily, but I like bringing stories to life is what I like. Mm-hmm. And I don't get to bring it to life until the models are done, right? So I like Tugs is kind of different. I like building Tugs models just on its own. But with Thomas, it's not so much about the model making for me as it is making sure the characters look right? That's really what I care about. And so that's why I make so many models myself, scratch built, for my wooden railway stuff. It's why I've kind of upgraded Gordon from looking like the standard one to having this kind of big, TV series-esque shape, is because I really want him to look exactly, the style I want. And so the look of things is very important to me, which is why I'm willing to put in all that time. But I don't necessarily enjoy the process of making the models all that much. I enjoy seeing them finished, and I enjoy them existing is what I really enjoy. But anyway, so the point being, so this episode that I'm telling you about doesn't have any of that. It is just all stock wooden railway. And when I say that, there are a few exceptions. I made a few other things that are new. I made a new Tidmouth Sheds. I made a few new characters. So it's like there are some other things in there that are scratch built. But mostly, I'd say 90% of what I would have done if this were like one of my, more detailed productions, I didn't do out of, for the sake of getting the thing done quickly. And I've learned a lot through this process because I've been working on it the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I've realized that I simply cannot go back. I to be happy with a project, to finish it and actually really, truly be proud of what I've made, I need to build pretty much everything from scratch.
Yeah.
That's the only way for me to really love it. So this new project, I think you're going to love it. I think most people are going to love it. But me personally, it's not my best work. I really do want to make something the next project I release after this is going to be all custom models for sure. Everything I make in the future is going to be that way because I just love doing that. But yeah, so there is a new story coming out though. So even though it's not my best work, it's still work, and I think people will still like it. And it's
Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's interesting, the style of it. I vastly prefer making paper faces for the models to doing it in editing and doing it in post. But for this one, because I wanted to do it to get it done quickly, which turned out to be a horrendous mistake. But because I wanted to get it done quickly, I edited the faces like I did in JBS. And they look really cool, right? It does look really good, the whole thing. But I gotta say, you probably know this about me by now, Scottish, is that I love physical models. I want everything on camera. I want it all to be real, right? And when you edit the face after the fact, it's not really real. It's kind of it's a special effect. And I prefer to I like the paper faces because those are real. Those are actually in the real world. Like I mentioned earlier, right? I could take the model to a train show. If I edit Gordon's face to make him angry, then I can't take angry face Gordon to a train show. Someone will look at it and be like, where's the thing I saw on screen? It's like, I don't have it. It's not real. I just edited it. It doesn't exist, right? So that's kind of how I feel about that. But at the same time, editing faces can have really, really great effects. And I think it it turned out pretty good here. So I like how it looks. The whole thing is well polished. It's good. It's a good production, but it's just not me. It's not my style. So I am going to release it, but it's kind of a weird it's an interesting experiment project. It's not necessary. It's not what I would do usually, but it is, it is something, and I think it'll be cool. So anyway, that's what I'm working on right now.
I'm gonna love it regardless. All of your work has been amazing.
Well, thanks, Scottish. I appreciate that. The thing is, like I can picture this, like I can picture this grand vision. I mean, it's like when we were talking about like Magic Universe stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, I know what I want it to look like, and I have a plan for like 3 years down the road. And, I want to really, this story I made isn't really part of that plan, which is why I'm kind of downplaying it. It's just kind of this weird segment. However, it is still good, and it still deserves to be published. It's people are going to like it, I think. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. I'm not gonna reveal anything more about it, but it's a very bizarre story. It's not about anything you'd expect, but I think you'll get invested in the characters. I think that it'll be, I think people will like it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Honestly, I can't wait.
Yeah, thanks.
Was that what you were editing a couple days ago when you said you had to?
Yes, it was. So, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up to you, is because you brought up how like editing can be a real grind. It's like the best part and the worst part. And I'm really feeling that right now, because on one hand, I finally get to put together all the stuff I filmed and it looks amazing. But on the other hand, I know that I have to sit here and like edit like a bunch of facial expressions, and I have to like slow down footage and speed up footage and move it around. And sometimes I need to move a clip from one track to the other, and then it freezes for like 33 hours, and then it comes up again, and then I have to move another clip, and then it takes 3 years, and then I move a second clip, and then it's a mess. I very much relate to that right now, especially because it is. It is difficult to edit.
Yeah, honestly. For my what is it gonna be? Probably 4-year anniversary on YouTube. I'm thinking about making a movie about Donald and Douglas.
That would be interesting. Those two are
back on the Caledonian.
That's cool. I'm very curious to like. I feel like they have very interesting pasts. Like they've lived a very long, interesting life before coming to Sodor. For one thing, it's interesting that I don't think the twins really have much allegiance to any specific railway when I think about it. Like, I think because the Caledonian, well, that was rolled into the LMS in what was it? When was the grouping? 1923?
I think so.
Yeah, so that was rolled into the LMS in 1923. And then the LMS became BR in 1948. And then, so they went through 3 different railways before coming to Sodor. And I feel like they kind of, the first changeover, they were kind of like, okay, we missed the Caledonian, this kind of sucks. And then after the LMS changed over, they're like, okay, enough of this. We've been through this before. And then, they go to Sodor and they're like, oh, this place is great. I love it here. But at the same time, we're kind of used to being abandoned by railways. So, if we don't put the railway initials on our tender, don't blame us. And it's interesting because you've done exactly that. So I do wonder how they feel about it. How does how do you think like each engine would feel about that if they had like the initials on them? Because some engines I know are very like non-conformist. They wouldn't want to like have the railway badging on them. Whereas others are like really dedicated. Like Gordon would be so proud of his NWO.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Gordon. He's gonna have Northwestern on him. Duck, I'm gonna have him still have Great Western. Arthur, I'm gonna have him with LMS as well.
Yeah,
but I think those are gonna be the only ones. Actually, that's not true. Little spoiler here. I got the Wellsworth and Sudbury engines. While Northwestern let me make them. So I'm going to have them with the Wellsworth and Sudbury on their tanks as well.
That's cool. What happens? I'm not going to ask. I don't want you to spoil
No.
anymore.
Continue. No, please.
I will. So what? So are they going to be like scrapped back in the day, or are they going to survive to like the present?
So what I'm planning on having them, like what's going to happen there's going to be like a really kind of like Heroes Hideout, kind of like a thing like that, but they're not going to be like scrapped.
Okay.
They're going to be in a shed, like an old rundown shed, and Ed, because they're going to be on the Wellsworth and Sudbury line, so Edward's going to come across them somehow, probably on his way to like a shed or something, probably down by the docks, but there's going to be a shed there that no one knows about, and then all the engines are just going to be in the shed there for probably what? When did the company go out? Like not the 40s. That was way too early. Like the 1910s.
Well, it went. Well, technically, it was amalgamated into the Northwestern, so 1915. But
yeah.
I don't really know what happened with the engines. It's weird. So here's the thing: is that we know that all the S&M engines were dead by 1900. That's kind of over before we even got close to the Northwestern. The railway company still exists, I imagine, but the locomotives are all gone. It's not operating. It's kind of derelict. So it, basically the Northwestern inherits a dead railway, which is the S&M. However, the other two railways, the coffee pots are still around, and they're still kicking on Thomas's branch up until people history in railways implies that it's like the 50s is when they go out of service. And then the Wellsworth and Sudbury branch never says anything about the engines going out of service. So it's interesting is that it is possible that they, that they're still operating there, that they were maybe packed away in a shed for a while, and then Edward discovers them, and he's like, well, I think the Fat Controller would quite appreciate the help. And then they're just kind of like, really, you mean it? That could be really cool. Or Edward's immediately like, there they are. We found them, scrap them, and then Harry and Bert come in with torches. That could happen as well. I don't know. I don't know what Edward is like. I hope not.
No, Edward's not going to be like that.
Can you imagine? That'd be so.
Oh my God! Imagine Edward just to be like the guy that goes and takes every engine to the scrapyard. It's like his alter ego.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Jekyll and Hyde. Oh my God. But yeah, I think what would really fascinate me, because Edward is always kind of the moral center of the railway. He always has the wisdom. He's always the kindest, always the most intelligent. I think sometimes his wisdom is more like genius. I mean, I think that he is quite, he's a brilliant character. Yeah. And I think that like Edward, it would be so fascinating to see like a universe, an alternate universe series maybe by somebody where Edward is more like
us.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I was gonna say that where Edward is more like kind of the opposite direction in terms of morality, where he's more like Diesel, but no one knows it, right? Can you imagine that if Edward was just as clever, just as able to kind of pull strings and to kind of like manipulate situations, except he was like Diesel, so he was like doing it for like malicious reasons. And so on the outside, he's this kind, friendly, sweet character. But then the second the camera turns away from him, he just like loses all emotion and it's just like back to business. And, he can just, wouldn't that be terrible?
Imagine if Edward was like, instead of Diesel 10 being like the head of the Diesels, imagine if it was Edward.
Oh my God. Wouldn't that be so amazing? Imagine an entire series that's about like that's Diesel focused. It's about like all the Diesel engines, and like they always talk about the big boss and we never see like his face. But then at the very end of the series, it's revealed that like it's Edward or something. It's like a steam engine behind all of this. That would be terrible.
There is actually a series like that. It's called Sodor: The Dark Times. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm not going to say who the engine is, but there is a
is that the? Are you talking about Sodor Dark Times, or are you talking about? Wait, hold on. Are you?
It's a train series.
Are you talking about the Alfred one?
Yeah, kind of. It's made by the same guy. It's just a different kind of series. I don't know how to explain it. Like I feel like it is the same thing, but I feel like it's just like a different part of it. Because Alfred is in it. He's in the background. There is an episode like featured around him, and it's a really good one.
There's a guy who made a series with the same title, but it's a totally different guy. Like 10 years later. Is it by Scarlotti 123 or is it by?
No. I think it's Trains for Days. I think that's
that guy. Yeah, I mean, he kind of. I don't want to call it. I don't want to call it a ripoff, but he did. He definitely just ripped the title right off. Like that's.
Oh really? Oh, I didn't know that. Alrighty
Yeah.
then.
Well, I mean, the classic one is from 2009, and it's by Scarlett 3, and it has 3 parts. Have you seen that one?
No, I have not. I might have to go watch
That's
that
a
one later.
tragedy, because that one is like, that's like, in my mind, one of the biggest classics of the Thomas community. However, but the thing is, like, I'm sure that like this Trains for Days guy has taken the concept and spun it in a whole different direction and came up with an amazing story. He definitely, like, I will say unashamedly that he ripped off the title just full out. He stole it. However, personally, I don't think that's that bad. I mean, because the thing is, it's about what you write. It's about the series. I saw like the first episode of it a while back, but I haven't really seen the rest. I've heard that like it's gotten much better as it's gone along, and like it's had a lot of.
It's really good. I will say that.
Yeah.
Really
so you know, I'm very glad that it exists. But at the same time, the one thing is the title. That's like not. It's not. You can't just name it the exact same thing.
It's like it'd be me like naming my series the Fat Controllers Railway or the Fat Controllers.
Yeah,
Engine.
it's just like, but instead of calling it like the I mean it's exactly the same thing. You know, it's a ripoff. So that's bizarre. But you know, like it's about what you write. It's about the actual story, and as long as the story is good, stand out, and amazing, or even just plain good, then I feel like the title doesn't really matter all that much. It's about what the story is, and I'm sure that he's been quite creative about it. So
Yeah. A few engines have died, including one of the main 11 or main 12.
That's badass. I like it when people actually like take risks like that. That's cool.
I did that in my old series. I killed not a good portion, but I killed some of the main engines off. I killed off Edward. I killed off James. I killed off Gordon, Kirsty, and Toby.
This is 5 serial murder. Good lord.
But it took place during World War II, so they all died to like bombs and stuff.
Yeah. I think it is neat when when somebody's willing to take risks in their writing. So a lot of people would play it safe, and that's fine too if somebody wants to play it safe. But I think it's really, it keeps you on your toes when you see changes happen. That's why for Tugs TWR, I really want to do that. I feel like we could kill off characters, we could, but we do it in a way where it's not like we've just ruined the series, because there's a lot of series. There's a lot of series I watch where it's like, I don't really watch any series right now, but I'm old enough that I have watched a lot of them in my life, and there's some of them that I've seen where you see them like kill off like a major character or do something that is kind of big, and then you're like, well, that's cool, but now I feel like I kind of want to revert back to the original show because that one's the normal one, right? Yeah. And I don't ever want to give people that feeling of like, well, don't worry, guys. If Tugs TWR goes in a weird direction, you can just jump back to normal Tugs, which of course they always can, right? But I want to make big, like groundbreaking changes in our story that still keep people engaged. Like they don't feel like, okay, this is a weird offshoot. They feel like these big changes aren't just for the sake of being big. These are big changes that are natural to the show that like after they see us do it, they're kind of like, I kind of picture the real show going this way now, and that's kind of like, that's what I want to do. I want to make it feel not like a Tugs AU, but just Tugs, and big things happen in the world. Big things happen in the story,
Big with 2 G's.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But yeah, so, that's definitely, I think, a really cool thing to do is, killing off characters can be really great as long as you do it with purpose, and, you have the other characters react to it. And, you really just, you get to see, how it affects the universe and the characters and the plot. And, there's a lot of great ways to do it. But I have to say, it baffles me that you have seen this the Sodor Dark Times inspired series, but you haven't seen Sodor Dark Times. Like that's, I guess, a generational thing. I mean, that's crazy to me. Man, wow. Like, so that's in the.
You feel old yet, Lemmy?
I don't have any problem with feeling old, but also no, I won't feel old until I am 50, I think. But anyway, so like I
still making models by then, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that like it's weird. Like you mentioned, so you know who Alfred is then.
Yeah.
But do you really? Because like
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because he was. I don't want to spoil anything about the original Sodor Dark Times. There are 3 installments. There's the Sodor the Dark Times. Then the second one's called Sodor Dark Times, The Enemy, Anger, and then the third one is called Sodor Dark Times. I don't remember what the title of the last one is, but it's the concluding episode. It's a really amazing series. It's, I would argue, probably the best one ever made in the community. It's only 3 episodes,
Really?
but with purpose. Yeah, I mean it's really great because it has Alfred is an amazing villain, and he's just there's a reason so many people use him. I mean, it used to be. I mean, it's. I don't want to say too much, but you know, it used to. I mean, there's a reason that people value Alfred so much. It's because that series made such an impact that it's like it blew everybody away, myself included, when it came out. And so now Alfred is still a very well-known character in the community, but he's kind of been used by a lot of different people and watered down. These days, I think people, when they think Alfred, they think 98462 very quickly. Am I right about that?
Yep.
And the thing is, in the original series, technically it was hinted to that he might be 98462. Or no, I think it was confirmed, but like it wasn't a major plot point at all. Like he never appeared as 98462 in that series. He was just Alfred, right? And then it was brought up halfway through the plot. Gordon and Alfred are talking, and Gordon, you know, it reveals that he knows who he is, or something like that, right? And then he mentions 98462. But they don't like explain who that character is. That's just kind of sprinkled in there, just kind of to like give Alfred more meaning. Like, oh, he's that one obscure Railway series character from the 20s. Well, that's weird. Like, I didn't realize that's who this guy was. But like, that's kind of it, right? So I really recommend you watch it. It is amazing. It's probably it's one of the biggest influences on me for sure. But it's crazy at this point that like, yeah, I mean. People are watching Alfred-inspired content without actually watching the original. That is nuts. That's cool, though. That means we're still growing as a community. Because if people are still obsessed with the same video 10 years later, that's a tragedy. You know, I mean, it's a good thing that these days, you know, we have our new classics. You know, we don't just keep focusing on the old ones. We keep progressing. Keep creating new amazing stuff, and that's great. And that really is how it should go. That's a sign of a healthy community, at least artistically. You know,
well, healthy in the way that we make content, not in the way that we are on Twitter.
Nothing on Twitter is healthy, and no one should be on there.
Yeah. I mean, I like to say that I don't know what happens in drama. I'm not in the drama like at all. I have people tell me about the drama. Like
I'm in the same boat as you, Scottish. I
try to stay out of it as much as I can.
Yeah, that's wise. Keep doing that because it's like it's just not. It never goes anywhere. It's no good for anyone. You know, yeah, I agree. You know, and the thing is, it's just about who you talk to, right? Like I know when I sit down with you and have a conversation, there's going to be no drama because we get along. Yeah. And that's it. It's that simple, right? So like you can just do that. You can just sit down with people you know you get along with, and no drama happens. It's as simple as that. It's not that complicated. But people keep thrusting themselves into situations where drama is likely to occur, and then it occurs. So
yeah,
it's kind of annoying. But you know that's why I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah. I was thinking about taking a break a couple of days ago, and I was like, I mean, I'm pretty much not on Twitter at all anymore. I don't tweet that much. I try to tweet at least once a week. Like the other week, I just tweeted like a poll, like, is Thomas an E2 or not? And I got one vote.
Oh my God, that's a topic for you.
Yeah,
I forget. What's your stance on that?
I say he's an E2.
He definitely is to me. I mean, the thing is, I think I first found out that Thomas is supposed to be an E2 when I discovered it. Have you ever heard of the Real Lives of Thomas the Tank Engine?
No.
It's a really old website. that, this was long before YouTube. I found this website, and it had all this railway series information, which I now know all comes from People, History, and Railways. But back then, it was all kind of redistributed on this website. And I found out that Thomas is supposed to be an E2. And so they had a picture of the class there. And from there, I was hooked. I was like, oh my God, he's like actually like a real train. Like he's got this real basis. Like he's part of this class. That's so cool, right? Because it's one thing, it's kind of the equivalent of finding out like Batman's not from Gotham City. He lives in New York and he's real. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's the coolest thing ever. Because like it's one thing to say, Thomas is the experimental 101 class built in whatever. It's like no, he's an E2. You can go and look it up. You could also probably there's the grandkids of the guy who built him are probably still alive somewhere. It's crazy, right? So it's like that. I love that. But anyway, I found out about it back then on that website, and I was hooked. And so for well over a decade now, I've seen Thomas as an E2. So there's no way I'm changing now. And I really love who he is, because
like that's what it's like. What I go off of is the TV series, because that's what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with the railway series. I got my big Audrey book like 2 years ago, and that's the first. That is the first thing I found. Like I knew the railway series was a thing, obviously, it's based off of it, but I didn't read any of the stories. Like I had no clue what when people were talking on Twitter about the missing coach. I had no clue what that was.
Right.
And I was like, "There's more Donald and Douglas stuff! Yay!"
Yeah. No, I was lucky. I've had the railway series all my life. I didn't call it that when I was younger. My parents called it the Great Big Book of Everything, is what we called it. And so it was basically this. It was the first 26 books, but I didn't know that those were separate books. It was just a big compilation. I'm sure it's the same one you're talking about, and. It's that was my bedtime book. So I knew the stories quite well. I knew all about D199 and 7101 and the missing coach and 8 famous engines. But I just didn't really know that it was written by the Reverend W. Audrey. I didn't really know that it was a separate thing from the show. So I always kind of saw them as one big universe. It's like there's the stories in the books and the ones on the show, but in the same way that like all my other Thomas books are. It's like, well, they're just extra stories, right? And it's all the same thing, which is probably filtered into how I see things now in terms of the universe. Is I tend to lump everything together, and I don't really, I love the TV series, but I also kind of see it like, I don't know. When I watch, say, I don't know, season 3, it's kind of hard for me not to picture that Bear's running around somewhere. Like I feel like he's there somewhere. We just don't see him, and maybe he wasn't there that day when the camera crew was there, and he was like, no, I can't believe it. I missed out. But like, I mean, that's the thing. I see it all as
he just happens to miss out for 24 seasons after that.
At that point, he's avoiding something. But yeah. Anyway, though, Thomas is an E2. I just think it fits him really well, because the idea that the E2s are kind of a dopey class. They're not like big failures or anything, but they're also not wildly successful. They're just kind of in between. They're like, they're a very like mediocre, unremarkable footnote class. And I think that would really get to Thomas, and that's why he works so hard to prove himself to everybody, is because he knows his class is unremarkable, and he wants to prove that he's more than that. And so like it just makes so much sense. A lot of people are like, well, the E2s suck, so Thomas shouldn't be one. And it's like, well, that's exactly why he should be one. Is because, it's not like Thomas is constantly trying to make something of himself, despite the fact that he's irrelevant to history. I think that's perfect. Plus, it looks like him. It looks exactly like him. Like, I don't care what anyone says. I know he's really long. No other engine in the whole damn world has those tanks. Maybe some of them get kind of close, but like, no, those extended side tanks are iconic, and the E2s that's one of the few things they are known for, and Thomas has them. And even now in 2D animation, he still has those tanks. So, they're kind of important. But yeah.
I'm gonna go grab my clay real quick, Lemmy. So
sure thing.
Talk about talk about what you think of Sir Handel.
All right, Sir Handel. Sir Handel, I want to lead with this. Sir Handel is he's great because I think a lot of people misunderstand Sir Handel. And there's obviously a million different interpretations that are all totally like valid. But like the way I see him, and I think the way Audrey saw him too, is that he's not this kind of whiny little kid that shows up and sees the old rundown sheds and he's like, oh, these are not good enough for me. You know, that's not who he is. No, he's like an old man almost who has been the CEO of a huge company for 30 years. And all of a sudden he's been retired, gotten the gold watch, and now he has to go to a retirement home. And he walks up to the retirement home and he says, this is not becoming of me. You know, that's what Sir Handel is. Because Sir Handel was the express engine of the Mid-Sodor Railway. That's what he was. You know, and he was the Gordon of his railway. Can you imagine what Gordon would do if his railway was shut down, his express was taken away from him, and then he's sent to the Bluebell Railway to shunt coaches with Stepney or something, right? He would not react well to that. Sir Handel does not react well either, you know? I mean, that's really what it is. So yeah, Sir Handel's more of kind of a dignified old man who, you know, feels as if he's been disgraced and lost his privilege and title. Than he is a whiny little kid who, you know, just thinks he deserves the world. Now, Sir Handel does act like a whiny little kid sometimes, and also I think in the early days on the Mid-Sodor, he was definitely a whiny little kid. But you know, once he arrives on the Skarloey, he's a whiny old man. That's what he is. Anyway, there.
He's like, get off my lawn.
Hmm?
He's like, get off my lawn.
Yeah, more like get me a better lawn. Yeah, that's more like what I'm saying. Tear out this lawn, plant me a better lawn.
He'd make Peter, Sam, and like Rusty do it all.
Yeah, that's true. And Peter Sam would help as best he can, but he doesn't know how to plant lawns because Rusty's the maintenance guy, and so Rusty's like,
that's why he got Rusty.
Yeah,
but I feel like Rusty is also one of the characters that you could push around the easiest.
Yeah, it's interesting though because I feel like on one level, if a job needs to be done, Rusty's just gonna straight up do it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like he's just usually if he can just say, "Fine, I'll do it," and just get the job done and prevent drama, he's gonna do that. However, if somebody, like I imagine Rusty also, it's not that he's a pushover. Because I think Rusty is really tough and has a lot of integrity. It's just that what he cares about is getting the job done. And so he's going to do that in the best way possible. If the best way possible is chewing Duncan out and yelling at him, he's going to do that too. You know?
Yeah.
So if Rusty has just spent 3 hours reballasting the entire yard, and then he's like, done. And then Duncan flies into the yard with a runaway goods train and barrel rolls over it and destroys the ballast job and says, oh, sorry, Rusty, I didn't gauge my speed properly. Rusty would just be like, Duncan, what the hell? I spent 3 hours on that. I told you to go slow coming into the yard. I told you, didn't I? Yeah, you did. And what did you do? I didn't listen because I thought it wasn't important. I see now that it was important. It's too late now. I've ruined the yard. I don't think all this ballast is necessary anyway. Why didn't you tell me before I started putting the ballast down? It's not my job to boss you around, Rusty. I'm not you. You know?
That's Dick's job.
but yeah, that would be those two. I think those two are just so much fun, and they're like tied for my favorite narrow gauge engine. It's either Duncan or Rusty. Probably Rusty. I think Rusty's my favorite, but Duncan's a close second.
I would probably have to go with Sir. Actually, no. I was thinking about this the other day, and it's probably mine's probably Skarloey.
Skarloey is great. He's like, you know, really, the way I see it, Skarloey, maybe we've talked about this already, I can't remember. But Skarloey is like, which one of them, what do you think is the difference between Skarloey and Rheneas as characters?
Rheneas, for me, Rheneas seems younger, probably just because of the numbers. But I don't know. I did grow up in my first season that was born. Not when I was born. The season that came out was season 10. So I'm used to I'm not used to season. Actually, yeah, I'm not used to season 4. Peter, Sam, and Rheneas. I'm used to Hit era, terrible, the really kiddish ones, the bad ones. So I'm used to Rheneas in being a child, but I like him better as an adult. Like, it's so much better.
Yeah,
But
I think
I just see him as a younger brother. Like, I know how you and was it Rudy Productions? I was on the Scarlowi episode with you.
Yeah,
how you guys put it, that Rheneas was the older one and he did all the things behind the scenes that we never saw. I do agree with that to an extent, but I feel like that Rheneas wouldn't do that and Scarlowi would be the one to do it.
That's interesting. So why do you think that?
Again, probably just because of the numbers and how Scarlowi's 1 and he's 2.
That is fair. I mean, it is hard. That's the one thing is, firstly, Tallyclin is like older than Dolgok, I think, by like 2 years. So he's like, that there, you've got that going for it, whereas Scarlowi, if you go by that metric, is older than Rheneas. And there's also the fact that, the numbering would have you believe that. And I guess I suppose Rheneas does have to be younger because it takes him so long to arrive. But the way I see that, I kind of feel like they were both finished at the same time, and then they had trial runs, and then it was found out that Rheneas had some problems, and so they had to make some alterations. But Scarlowi was done, so it's like, let's send him away off to Sodor. And so I think that in that way, because when I think about it, Scarlowi misses Rheneas when he's sent to Sodor, I believe. I mean, he's kind of like, he feels lonely, right? And so I feel like he wouldn't miss Rheneas if Rheneas was just a non-speaking boiler sitting there in the back of the shed. I feel like he would have to be like kind of fully formed, at least to a degree. So I think they're probably about the same age. The way I see Rheneas, I definitely see Rheneas as the older brother, just because, mainly because of Gallant Old Engine. Not in the show, because the show kind of takes a very different perspective on all this, but in the Railway series, because in the books, Rheneas is kind of this like valiant character that kind of keeps the railway going where Scarlowi isn't able to, and like that's kind of how he's made out to be, is this kind of much, he's kind of been through the ringer. He's been through a lot more, whereas Scarlowi really hasn't. He's kind of been sheltered from some of it. So I've always had that perspective, but you could argue the other one as well, because like the numbering is a very good argument. It's kind of like,
but then on the other hand, I also don't think that Thomas is older than Edward.
Yeah, see, I was about to bring that up. It's like, I do not like what The Adventure Begins does. I love that movie. It's a great movie. It is a dream come true to fans, me, myself included. But I think it very clearly illustrates what the problem is with making Thomas anything other than the first engine on the railway, which is like Edward has to give this like long, they have to give this like long kind of exaggerated, what is it? So Edward gives this like long, complicated, like elaborate explanation about how like, Thomas, you're not the first, but you're number one because we killed all the coffee pots and took their numbers, and this guy's still there, and so therefore, you get his, okay? Like that's like, no, he's number one because he arrived first. That's what it is. It's as simple as that. It very much feels like them trying to doctor history. It's like, okay, how do we explain this? And Thomas is just sitting there in the background. Thomas is like there as a consultant in the back of the boardroom as the writers try to figure this out. And he's just like, you guys aren't going to figure it out. There's no way. And they're just like, no, he cannot be, he has to be young. I am 100 years old. Shut up, Thomas. We're trying to write the story. All right, how do we make him young? I'm not young. I'm older than Gordon. Don't ever say that to the public. All right, come on, think. How do we it's like, that's the vibe I get off of the show. Like, Thomas like knows what the truth is, but they don't want him to say it because it's like, okay, that would make everyone really uncomfortable. I'm
older than Gordon.
Yeah, like I think it'd be so funny for him to just say that one day, because it would just be like so, it would make everyone so uncomfortable. But it's true. But like the thing is, to engines, I don't think age works that way. I don't think they really look at it that way, because the thing is, it's kind of like a catch-22. The way that this works. Like, you could argue, I don't like that Thomas is older than Gordon. I will make him younger. And so then Gordon comes along first, and then Thomas comes along, and then bingo, there you go. But then, then you look at them and you're like, okay, I can relate to that. Is that when you have a mentor figure to a younger character, they have to physically be younger. That's just how it works among humans, right? So like, okay, good. Now Thomas is younger than Gordon. We fixed it, right? But if you're looking at it through that lens, what happens when we go 20 years into the future? 40 years into the future, 60 years into the future, 100 years into the future. What happens when we are 150 years into the future? Thomas and Gordon are now 150 years old. Technically, they are very, very old men. So if we are going by that human kind of worldview, then we're going to look at them.
If we were going by the human worldview, they'd be dead by 150.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be dead. And if they weren't, they'd be extremely wrinkly and old and be talking like this.
Thomas would actually use the Timothy face from Magic Railroad.
What?
Thomas would actually be using the Timothy face from Magic Railroad.
Yeah, he really would, right? He'd be, he'd look really super old. And nobody agrees with that either. So which one is it? Is it that, the engines are kind of these immortal, ageless beings that are more defined by the way that they're built and their personality? And then therefore, when they're 100 years old, it's not uncomfortable because they're immortal and that's just how it works? Or are they characters that are confined by age? And then that way, sure, we get to have Thomas, who is younger than Gordon, but eventually it's going to get very uncomfortable for everybody involved because we're going to finally realize that these engines are going to get old really fast. But anyway, but the point being, I think when people get the heebie-jeebies about Gordon being younger than Thomas, I think they miss the point, which is that it's not so much that Gordon is like more mature than it's not necessarily that Gordon is like less mature than Thomas or that he is like more childlike, or it's not like that. It's more like Gordon is stronger than Thomas, better than Thomas, bigger than Thomas, because that's what youth means to an engine. It means, that a character is, they have this kind of, they're more modern. It's more the equivalent of, Gordon isn't necessarily younger. It's more like they're both kids in high school and Gordon has the brand new jacket that everybody wants. That's more like it is, right? Yeah. It's more of a status symbol, but it doesn't really have any commentary on their age. Like Edward is very old and wise, but that's because he's like 20 years older than both of them. Whereas Thomas is only like 6 years older. It's not really that big of a deal. Whereas Edward, it's like he's like from a different era. He's a Victorian era steam locomotive. So he's like, very different. Anyway, I hope I'm not talking too much through your stream, Scott.
Oh, no, it's fine, dude. I don't care.
All right, okay. If you're sure.
I don't know what I would be saying now anyway. If you weren't here, the stream would probably be over an hour and 47 minutes ago.
So 30 seconds long would be that stream. Yes. Oh, good Lord. I think I might have made OJ's funnel too thick. And I think that'll probably work. At the same time, I feel like OJ has a very thick funnel, though. I feel like
yeah. Speaking of stuff like that, I did the head for Big Mac.
Oh, cool. Here, let me see. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's neat.
Got the indent in the back.
Yeah, look at that. That's awesome. Let's see. Doesn't he have... So with his hat, I forget how this works. Doesn't his hat kind of do the thing where it kind of tilts forward, like tilts down? Because
I think so.
Yeah, Warriors kind of tilts like up, and then Big Mac's kind of tilts down. Here, let me see. Big Mac hugs. There are some things that I always incorporated into my models that I like always kind of that I realized later on weren't even true. So I'm trying to figure out if that's one of those things. Yeah, his hat does tilt down. Okay. So what I might recommend to you is taking his is kind of creating an angle on like the roof, if you get what I mean. So the hat sits at an angle, right? So slanting it slowly down to like the front of the wheelhouse would be the way to do it.
Yeah, I got you.
But I think the height of it is already right. So I feel like you might want to add more onto the back of the top of the head rather than cutting more off the front, because I feel like the height is already good.
Yeah.
I like the size of it though. I mean, that's like he's coming together. Just a sec, Scottish.
Alrighty.
All right. So what were we talking about?
How the hat is going to slope down.
Yes, that is right. This is crazy. It's like, so I believe that Victor has begun Sunshine a while back. You've done Big Mac. Asher is pretty much very near done with Warrior. Let's see what else. Top Hat is done. OJ is being worked on. So 10 cents it hasn't been started by Northwestern, which is, I mean,
that's
totally
just one of the stars. That's so weird. We've had these models for what, 2-3 weeks now.
The other one is Hercules. Will hasn't started Hercules.
Oh yeah, Hercules.
But yeah, I mean, we're making some progress. All right. I mean, this is pretty good.
I always forget that Hercules isn't done because he's right in the background, and I have a Hercules. So I'm just like, What do you mean Hercules isn't done? He's right there.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, your Hercules is really fantastic. Like it is like, if all the models were like in that kind of like exact style, like I think it'd be very satisfying. The thing is, like, because I'm trying to match like Top Hat and Zach. Like, I'm sure now that you have Big Mac, you can, and like I've told you the proportions and everything, you can see how those two are proportioned like very differently.
Yeah.
Like, Big Mac is just overall much smaller. The head is much smaller. The superstructure is much smaller. So you can imagine Hercules, the one for the series, it'd basically be like yours, except you take the head and superstructure and you scale them down to maybe 60% of the size they are now. And it still looks amazing. Like, if there were like Hercules toys that looked like that, I would buy one. But it's like, for the style of the series, we're like kind of, it'd need to be scaled down. And at that point, it's like, it wouldn't be worth making you butcher it to that point. And so I did not make the funnel long enough because I did not factor in the hat. So it's kind of annoying.
I did not do that either, and I also made the funnel. Crap. Well, I mean, I'll remake it. It's all right. It's all right. Honestly, it probably will be. It might be long.
I think your funnel is much too big, I would say. Yeah, like that right there. I mean, I think you do need to remake it, but I think it's because, well, like say like compare it to like compare it to like Top Hat's funnel here, right? Like say it basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like yours is really big. I think you could maybe just cut some off the end, honestly. I don't know if you necessarily have to remake it. But yeah, the funnel, I did this a lot on some of my older models. The funnel is only kind of peeks over the wheelhouse. It's not like it towers over like the top. And that's something that like it kind of takes a few tries to kind of learn. Also,
are we doing the slant on the funnel? Or are we just doing it straight
up?
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing it, but something I'm noticing from everybody is they always make it too intense. You want it to be slanted so slightly that you have to squint at it to tell if it's actually slanted. Like,
I couldn't even tell on Top Hat. So,
well, that's because it isn't. I mean, it's not right.
Oh.
Like his is straight up. but that's just because of it. It's supposed to stick like this, but it keeps flopping forward.
Oh, okay. I was like,
yeah,
I think top head straight up. I don't know if we're supposed to do that,
but Zach is like, well, firstly, this is too far back, but also, Zach is like a good example because you can see how that's slanted. It's like very subtle. Like you can barely tell that it's been slanted. But it is just a little bit. So that's kind of what we're going for. I'm noticing that everybody slants it really, really far. And it's like,
I slanted it very far for Hercules.
Yeah.
Like, it is very far.
That's definitely too far. But at the same time, I get why you would do it. It's the same reason that, this is a weird tangent, but it's like whenever in every cartoon you look at, anytime somebody draws a human being, they always draw the eyes way bigger than they are on a real person. The reason is that's the focal point. We care more about that part, right? We are kind of taking a physical detail that we value and we're exaggerating it. And so when I say slant the funnel, people slant it a lot further than it actually is in the show because they're prioritizing that detail. They're saying, okay, I'm going to slant the funnel. That's clearly something that matters. So I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it very clear. So like, I get why people have done that. But part of it too is like, I really do urge you to have references with you at all times when you're making models. Because, that's like, you really like, when I give advice and when I like say the tutorial I made that assuming that all the while people wouldn't just make the model and look at my tutorial. They'd make the model and look at pictures from tugs because that's where the information is. Right? I didn't show you how to make Zebedee or Top Hat or the Coast Guard. I showed you how to make Zach Zach in Lemmy's style, very, very specifically, right? So it shows you the basic methods behind things, but really what I expected people to do is watch the tutorial through and then put the tutorial away and then go and look at pictures of Zach the entire time as they make model, or pictures of Top Hat or pictures of Hercules or, whoever they're making. They'd hyper focus on that picture and then look at like what they're making and try to like make them close and be like, okay, how wide is Hercules' superstructure? Is it narrow? Is it wide? Where is it? Okay. And, they kind of, go at it that way. So the point being, I can tell that, say like when you slanted Hercules' funnel, you were much more focused on the fact that I asked you to slant it than the fact that the pictures of Hercules that you've seen in the show indicated to you that it should be slanted that way. Like clearly you were focused more on what I said, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very fair because you were following a tutorial, so that's, that just shows that you were listening. However, at the same time, going forward for the project, what I would really love for people to do is to focus more on what Tugs shows them than what I show them, because I'm looking at the same thing that you guys are. I mean, I'm just looking at Tugs, it's, we want to be consistent, but at the same time, I think that we should all have the same source of inspiration, and it shouldn't really all come from me. I'm kind of giving some tips and tricks, but really it comes from the show. That's where all the inspiration comes from. Okay, I think I've successfully increased the size of the funnel. So there you go.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I agree. Oh,
your big stuff. You're like your bigger TWR TV style engines.
What you mean, like this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you made Donald and Douglas yet?
I have actually. I showed them in the stream the other day, very briefly.
Did you? I missed it.
So where are they? Oh, they're right here. Yeah, these two were really fun to make. Because the thing is, the engines that I've made really big are really just the here, I have both of them, and I'm just going to show you Donald because he's the one who has the tender. Let's see, where's the track? So the thing about the big size is that the only engines I made big are the ones that really needed it. So like Gordon and Henry, and also some of the big mainline diesels, like say Boko or Daisy is not a mainline diesel, but you get my point.
Yeah, bigger.
It's those characters that I really prioritized. So like, say for Thomas or James, they're a lot smaller. So naturally, I just use the normal wooden railway size. And Donald and Douglas are in that camp. So they have a really cool size difference with Gordon that I'm really satisfied with. But so here is Donald.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear it. I was
you got the name on there too. Oh, that's the thing I don't like about TWRs. It didn't include the name on the side.
Yeah, no, I really I'm so pleased with how this turned out. And I made the nameplate sticky. So basically, if I ever did want to move it like more like where it was in
the middle.
Yeah, like if I wanted to put it I don't know if that's exactly the right place there, but if I wanted to slowly migrate it to the middle like they did in the show, I could always do that as well. And all of a sudden he's like a season 6 Donald. So it's pretty cool.
I love it with the nameplate in the middle. Like it's kind of in the middle on the take along versions, but I wish it was just like right here.
I definitely that's like the kind of the season like it's interesting. You can tell when stuff was made. Like that one clearly was based on like the season 3 one, and then some of them were based on like moving more towards the middle, like season 6, like you're talking about. For me, my favorite's definitely season 2, where it was on the smoke box. But at the same time, I do really appreciate the middle one. Like that looks really cool too. So it's like but let me. There's also I have Douglas as well. The thing is, they just use the standard wooden railway tenders because there's really nothing wrong with them. So wrong with them? As if I had to like fix these like some sort of train god. But I did I did want to change a lot of things about their appearance because I wasn't really satisfied with the shape of the normal wooden railway ones. Like they had these very big, bulky handrails on the side that weren't represented on any other engine, just them. Also, they just didn't have the right Donald and Douglas energy. They just didn't. Yeah. The smoke box and boiler were too small and too low down, and just So I'm very happy with kind of the look of these guys. Like I really want to do in my kind of big wooden railway style. I want to do like a Missing Coach remake or something. I know that's cliche by this point, but I really would love to. I just love these guys.
The Donald and Douglas are just such interesting characters because I feel like they just look so much different from all the others. They have different tenders. They have different there's different. Like Edward's bigger and he has the same tender as Gordon. Like that's pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because they kind of they do feel like they're from another country. They do feel like they're like from Scotland, and of course, and at the same time, they don't there are a lot of engines that kind of should look that way in the show that don't, just because they weren't as accurate. But it works. It works for the story that Donald and Douglas, they're black. You don't see any other engines that are painted black. They just have this kind of shape to them and these long, low tenders and this, they have a different energy to them and they look amazing. And so that's why I loved making those models, is because I love the TV series Donald and Douglas. Because I made a railway series Donald, or was it Douglas? I think it was a railway series Douglas at some point for a project a long time ago, and I painted him blue. He was in like a larger scale. So I made that guy, and he has a different shape from these two because he is more railway series. So his boiler and smoke box are smaller, his funnel's bigger. He just in general has different proportions. And I love the real 812s, but I also love the Donald and Douglas in the show because they look great in different ways. Like they're both just so satisfying to look at.
Donald and Douglas are just amazing characters. I love them.
Yeah, for sure.
Such good. That's why they were my favorite. They're just so different.
Yeah,
all the others.
And I love how, I think part of that is that like out of the main 11, they're the only two characters that have kind of their own like they almost count as they count as a set, right? So the two of them, each and every other character on the main 11 stands on their own. and can like they have groups they're a part of. Thomas has the Farquhar trio, and Gordon has the big engines and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But like they can all stand on their own. Donald and Douglas are the only two where if you point out Donald, then you have to have Douglas beside him, and vice versa. Obviously, they have their own lives and can do whatever they want, and probably have different friends, to a degree. But they are a set, and so in a way, that makes them the most different of all because they kind of are part of their own little club. Out of the main 11, they're always going to be sitting next to each other having a conversation that only they know what it's about, like that's
they could just be talking Gaelic.
Yeah, exactly, and nobody would know what they were saying. They wouldn't be able to decipher
what the hell are they talking about.
Wouldn't it be great if Edward knew? Like Edward speaks Gaelic, and he was just like, well, I know, but I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like it anyway, Gordon. Believe me.
Yeah, they're just talking about how pompous Gordon is, and Edward he's just sitting over there chuckling the whole time.
Yeah. It would kind of work too, because Edward, I think he was designed in Scotland, if not built there. The company who built the K2s, I think, was based in Scotland. So you could argue that Edward has Scottish in him.
He just doesn't sound Scottish.
Yeah. But maybe, if I were to do like a big, huge budget railway series movie that had like where it's literally CGI real locomotives that look like the Thomas characters, and like you find celebrities to play them and all that, right? I feel like if I were to cast Edward, I would specifically cast somebody who had just a twinge of Scottish in their accent, maybe. Maybe like they're not like, it's more of an English-Scottish mix. But like you can tell he's not just fully just English. Like he's got some Scottish, in his accent as well. And it's like that's the type of thing where like I can't really do that now because if I were to like say make a movie or something and then cast a bunch of people to play the characters, they're going to be great voices, but it's still going to be a bunch of teenagers and 20-somethings doing impersonations of certain accents from places they've never been, So it's like, it's not really going to be the same. You can't have that level of nuance, right? Where, whereas if you hired like, a 50 or 60-year-old actor to play Edward, who was born in Britain, who could do a little bit of a Scottish accent and had like everything that's necessary for that voice, I feel like you could get that level of nuance. It'd be really cool. And that's something we can't really do in this community. It's too difficult because if I do my Edward voice, it sounds good. It sounds like Edward. And I do like doing it. I think that it's a good voice for him. It captures his character. But at the same time, I understand that I don't sound like an old man, and I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to get the accent right. I'm trying to get the cadence right. I'm trying to give people an idea of what Edward would sound like if he were saying these words. Whereas if it were an actor that was perhaps 50 or 60 years old, that had a lot of experience and also had the weight of age on their voice, I think they could do a much better Edward that actually sounds literally as if it's coming from his mouth. And this doesn't. It sounds good, sounds like Edward, but it doesn't sound exactly like Edward, the way that it probably should. And that's fine. So we're not trying to aim for that. We're just trying to get the idea across in this community. However, with a real, if you really want it to sound like it's actually Edward, then it's got to be, you've got to cast someone who really, really fits the profile, I think. Of course, I don't really have any desire to do that. But I understand that, if you were going to do it, you'd probably need to hire someone who's a lot older than me, because I do sound, I would suppose, like a 20-year-old or 22-year-old, I suppose, doing an accent that isn't my own, and also doing an accent of somebody who's much, much older than me. Anyway, I've done Edward for long enough. I honestly feel like I could just keep speaking in this voice for the rest of the game. Like, if I wanted to, I could probably just keep it up, which would be interesting.
All right, guys, I'm not. This stream isn't featuring Lemmy anymore. It's featuring Edward. So, get your questions out now.
Yes, everyone ask Edward questions. Imagine that, though. Imagine if I just kept doing this extensively. It's not a good look. Comparing yourself to Edward is like comparing yourself to Jesus. It's just you don't do it. It's very arrogant. It's my John Lennon of saying I'm bigger than Edward now. I'm better than Edward. No one should say that. under any circumstances. It's not
No
good.
one's better than Edward. That's impossible.
Yeah, that's true. And that's just because he's written to be that way. He has that advantage.
Yeah. Well, maybe except for Donald and Douglas, but that's just my bias.
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends on what you mean by better. It is interesting. Those two are like, they have very strong principles, for sure. I mean, they're. It's interesting because the one of the big differences is Edward will let people walk all over him, whereas the twins won't. They will.
No, they will not.
Like, I don't think they're as violent as a lot of people say they are. I don't think they're violent at all. But I think that if you punch them, they will punch back, and both of them will punch at once, and you will be unconscious. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, they can stand up for themselves and will not hesitate to. However, if you don't harm them, they are as peaceful as can be, is what I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Like, they would probably just go up to like a BR Diesel and just punch him. They just like sandwich him, like one, like Donald's at the front, Douglas at the back, and just ram him, and he just like squished down to the size of an 08.
Oh my god. That reminds me of like this one SpongeBob gag. I can't remember what episode it's in, but SpongeBob like takes off like a guy's head, and it turns out it's a fake head, and then there's just this little guy inside, and he's just like, the people at the head enhancement clinic said nobody would notice, and then he like runs away crying. It's like that. Like Donald and Douglas ram this guy, and then the shell cracks open, and it turns out he's a class 08 the whole time. He's just like, oh no, I've been found out. Oh,
it's just like it's Diesel trying to get like an important like Diesel 10 status in the rankings of BR.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's great. That's like it's I don't know, I forget. How much do you know about DC Comics and Batman and stuff?
Not much.
I'll say this is that it's kind of like when Lex Luthor builds big like kind of Lexo like mech suits to like get into to defeat Superman. That's like what it is. Diesel would make like the ultimate mech. He'd make like this big like kind of class 40 sized suit that he could roll into and activate. But then like he'd just immediately get defeated. Like Donald and Douglas would ram into him, and Diesel 10 would be there, and he'd be like, what the hell is this, Diesel? You're trying to be like me, huh? And Diesel's just like,
you trying to have a claw? You trying to have a claw? Because that just doesn't work. It doesn't work for some people, okay?
It'd be humiliating. Diesel would like speak into his radio. He'd just be like, Paxton, we've been found out. I repeat, we've been found out. Use the suicide capsule. And Paxton's just like, what? What are you talking about, Diesel? You didn't run any of this by me. It's too late.
It's like Sydney built the thing, and he's like, I didn't put a suicide capsule in it.
Oh my god, that's great. Imagine that Sydney is like a really great mechanic, but like he's also just incredibly forgetful and also constantly forgets what clients want from him. So like he's a genius who can build anything, but then also he just
can't remember how to build it.
Yeah, exactly. That's honestly very tragic.
He's like, this piece goes here. Speaking of Sydney, though, I was gonna, for a way I was gonna take all of the engines in my series, I was gonna make them I was gonna put Sydney in Northwestern blue. Yeah. Like I was gonna repaint him and put him in Northwestern blue. And Paxton, I was gonna do green, and then Norman, I'd probably just leave how he is.
Yeah, but that's cool.
I like that's cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting because, like, I see in the Railway series at least, there's like a very clear kind of color coordination going on where it's like it is the diesels have one type of livery and steam engines have another. And there is something cool about like all of them kind of being treated the same way, because I feel like that's more right, in a way. But at the same time, I really love the different colors too, so I'm torn. It's kind of like the numbering thing, right? Like like how they're all D1, D2, D3. I mean, really, if the Fat Controller is truly fair, he should just he should have just numbered Boko number
12, 13.
Yeah, something like that, right? Really number 11 he should have, and then Oliver would have been
Oliver, yeah.
Or even Daisy. Daisy would have been 11. Boko would have been 12. Then Oliver would have been 13, and then Bear would have been 14, and it would have gone on like that. But instead, they got a totally different system, which is interesting. I mean, it's kind of like, first, the Fat Controller didn't want Diesels at all. Then when he did, there's kind of this segregation going on, admittedly. And then the next step you'd expect is maybe in the 80s or something, maybe after calling all engines when the dust has settled, the Fat Controller's like, all right, fine. I didn't want to have to do this. We're blowing up the whole numbering system. We're renumbering everyone in the same category. We just have to do that. It's right for the engines. And he like gives a speech about it, right, to everybody. And the Diesels all cheer. They're like, yes, finally, we have equal rights. And then
It'd be like a Martin Luther King Jr. kind of thing. I feel like someone, like, I don't know who would do it, but like probably Diesel. He would probably fight for equality. Like, I feel like the Diesels are really like pushed down by the steam engines, especially. I feel like it's like kind of how it was back before Martin Luther King and all the segregation and stuff.
Yeah, it does remind me of that. And but the complicated part is that like the Diesels are the aggressor on BR, and then all of a sudden when they come to Sodor, everything switches around. So it's very complicated because like Boko never did anything wrong. He's totally discriminated against on the island, and he's treated terribly, and he very much is. You could parallel him with, somebody who's being is facing prejudice for his race. I mean, that is really what Boko is. Mm-hmm. But, then like there's other characters that are like very malicious, and Diesels in general on the other railway do seem to be malicious. So it's like a very dangerous comparison to make. But I do make it a lot at the same time because like there are a lot of parallels like that. But it's interesting. I mean, it's like definitely on Sodor, it very much is like segregation in America, but except the big difference is that black people never did anything wrong here. We were just really shitty. Whereas on Sodor, there's like the steam engines actually have something to be afraid of. It's almost more like there really is no good comparison in the real world. I guess maybe like the closest parallel is more like the Diesels are like Nazis in Nazi Germany, and then the rest of the world doesn't trust Germans for a very long time after the war. Even the Germans didn't agree with it. They still don't trust them. And then finally we have to kind of realize like, okay, the war is over. Germany wants to be better, and obviously we arrested all the Nazis and everything. And, but like we now have to realize that everybody who did something horrible back then is gone. And now we have to like, just not, and so it's like that, maybe that sort of comparison is more apt. But it depends. It's basically, are you on BR or are you on Sodor? Because on Sodor, it's the Diesels who are victimized, but on BR, it's definitely the steam engines. I'd say it's almost like BR operates like Nazi Germany, and then Sodor operates like segregation America. It's like they're very different, but they're very consistent depending on where you are. It's when you try to compare the two of them together that it gets messy. So, but that means it's a good narrative. That means that Audrey wrote something really clever, which, while you can definitely recognize parts of the real world in it, it isn't exactly the same. It's not like, you can parallel it exactly. It's very interesting, how it doesn't really line up perfectly. It's like a very, it's good at paralleling certain things, but it's not obvious who's supposed to be who, because they're just steam engines and Diesels. No one is anyone. It's literally just about steam engines. He liked steam engines. That's all it was. Like, it really is that straightforward. It's not like what does it mean? What is he saying? It's like, no, he's just like, I like steam engines. I don't want them to be scrapped. I think they could go another 20 years if you gave them the chance, but they didn't, and I don't agree with it. And so,
I bought a ton of them, and now they run my railway.
But it's like,
so, fuck you, BR. Go die.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god. And the thing is, you can't really blame the engines on Sodor, and you can't blame the Fat Controller for seriously distrusting Diesels because, like, of what's going on the other railway, because the Diesels are this evil empire that actually succeeded and won. But then the problem is, what about when somebody like Boko, like a lot of the engines, when he arrives, see him as somebody who's invading. But the thing is, he's not an invader. He's a refugee. He is like escaping BR. It's just that his escape doesn't look nearly as glamorous as Oliver's because he's not a steam engine. But the thing is, Boko, I mean, I see him very much as somebody who one day they asked him to scrap a steam engine. Here's the thing. Boko, I imagine, was on BR for a few years, 2, 3, 4 years, however long, right? Just sitting there, biding his time, gritting his teeth as he watches all the bigotry. And he's just like, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just not going to say anything. And he's trying to keep his mouth shut about things, right? And then finally they ask him, take that steam engine and put it in a siding, right? You know? and then Boko's just like, I can't. That's it. And he goes and packs his bags and leaves. It's as simple as that. Like, that's the moment where he's just like, you know what? I can't. I give up. and he leaves and goes to Sodor. He doesn't make a big stink about it. He doesn't say, I'm leaving, everyone. Goodbye. He doesn't do that part. He just leaves. In the night, they probably don't even know where he went. Maybe he even organizes it with the station master, so he does it legally. But he's just like, I cannot do this anymore. I've got to go. It's as simple as that. And it's like quitting a really bad job that you don't agree with. And he ends up on Sodor. And from then on, he slowly bides his time and takes the punches and understands that these steam engines aren't going to like him for a while. But after a while, they realize that he's an asset, and they realize, wow, we seriously misjudged this guy. He's got really amazing morals. And, so he becomes, a beloved member of the family. But at first, of course, he has to kind of sit there and take a lot of punches, which he does willingly because he understands that they have to get it out of their system. But it's also not fair. He should have been able to just walk right in and say, I've never done anything wrong to anyone. There's no reason anyone should disagree with me. But the engines aren't going to believe that. He should have been able to. And that's probably what he told Edward is, I've never heard a steam engine. I would never dare. And Edward was like, leave you entirely. All right. Let's welcome to the railway. It was a 2-minute conversation. Edward was just like, all right, they are good diesels. I know that. It could even be Boko comes along and he's like, look, I know this is hard to believe, but I'm a good diesel. There are good diesels out there. And Boko, if you just, no, but listen to me, Edward. I don't, it's not like I would hurt other engines. I would never do that. I would never hurt a steam engine. I would sooner die than hurt it. Boko, please, if you know, just listen to me. I know you might think I'm a villain. I know you might think I'm some sort of psychopath, but I'm not. I'm Boko. Please listen. I don't think any of that. I know there are good diesels. Of course there are. Gordon doesn't know this, but there's a diesel rail car on Thomas's branch line, and she's fine. I mean, she's very arrogant, but she's fine. And there's Mavis as well. Thomas is hiding a lot of diesels no one knows about. I've met them. They're great. Had me over for tea. Let's not worry about it.
All right, that was a bad voice crack right there. Holy crap.
Just roll with it, Scottish. Whenever I have a voice crack, I just keep going. But yeah.
Hand me over for tea.
Oh my god. So I think the funnel is pretty much ready to go. There's the hat.
I feel like this James is looking pretty well. I feel like this James is looking pretty good. Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna paint the smoke box and get it ready on the lining.
There's something about that James that is standing out to me. Was there I don't know, there's something I like about it that isn't. Is the wooden railway one? No, not wooden railway. Is the take along? There's something that looks different about the tender. Obviously, it doesn't have any lining, but is the running board usually painted maybe it's a. I don't know what it is. There's something different. Maybe it's the shade of red. Maybe I'm not.
It could be. It is a different shade of red. The usual one's a bit lighter.
Yeah. No, I like this. I like the look of that a lot. I can't really put my finger on why.
The only trouble I'm having though is I'm so used to James having black lines, but I want to have him have blue or yellow. He has yellow on his boiler in the TV series, and that's what he had on this. But he had black lines. But I kind of want to give him blue.
What, on the boiler?
Yeah.
I say just go for it. The way I always saw it was that James's boiler bands weren't really paint; they were more of brass. They were, they were bands, right? Mm-hmm. So I imagine they they cast boiler bands in the finest and purest brass they could find on the planet. And then they, in this grand gesture that James made everyone else attend for no reason, they slowly lowered them onto him and clasped them and riveted them together. And then James gave a long speech to everyone at the very highest point of the works and said, "Thank you, everyone, for coming. I would like to thank the Academy. I would like to thank the Boiler Bandsmith. Thank you, Boiler Bandsmith. I would like to thank the team that went up into the Alps and found the pure brass for my boiler bands. I would like to thank my color specialist. Thank you, color specialist. You're very good at choosing the right color. I would like to thank the Fat Controller for investing £350,000 in this entire endeavor. I would like to thank...
Just get on with it! Oh,
God. What's that, Scottish?
Gordon's like, Jesus Christ, £350,000 for this?
Yeah.
So that's why I couldn't get my overhaul this year. You say you don't have a favorite child, sir. I know who your favorite is. Shut up, Gordon. If you interrupt James's speech too many times, then it's going to go on for 3 days. Trust me, I've read the script. It's going to go a while.
I've read the
Everyone,
script. James has like a little podium in front of him. He just looks down every couple of seconds.
It's just like a flat car or something that's like built like a podium. And he's just got this like kind of like annoyed face on him the whole time. The flat car is just kind of like, I feel so undignified about this. And, James is just like, shut up, it's my speech.
James goes, cut the mics for a second. Okay, you need to shut up or else I'm gonna bump you off into the sea.
And then Henry on the other side of the yard is like, James, I forgot to cut the mics. Damn it, Henry, now everyone knows I'm a bad person.
We knew that before, James. Keep going.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's great.
We knew that before. Keep going.
But yeah.
Ugh.
Let's see. I need paper clips. I've needed paper clips for a long time, actually. I need to get more paper clips. Now COVID is finally kind of dwindling down. I can finally go to a store and get paper clips very soon.
Yeah.
Where are my... Oh God. I've only got like one little box, and I don't know where it is. And it is truly priceless to me. Oh God. It seems like spilled everywhere.
Gotta paint the cab still. Forgot about that.
All the paper clips have been dumped. My God. But it's okay. I found enough of them. I only need 2 for the funnel and for the mast.
Yes.
That's it.
Oh, yes.
Don't you love that one moment in The Adventure Begins where Gordon stops after dragging Thomas across the island and then the clock strikes 12 and Gordon's like,
oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's so good. Just 2 little words, but adding that after that classic scene makes it so much more human. It's just like, because that's how he would react. He'd just be like, he's satisfied, 1, that he got the perfect revenge, and 2, that he's right on time.
He's just like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's so good.
I made Gordon like private coaches. Like I gave him like first class because I have Pip and Emma in my series, so they are the express engines. But here, I'll pull out one of them. This is the brake coach.
So Gordon still has like a special train to pull, but it's just not like.
I gave him blue lines instead of the regular red and green.
That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. That's neat. I feel like if you kind of picture the Railway series, the way it ends, where like in the final book, it's revealed that Gordon's being taken off the Express. I feel like the very beginning of the very next book, if there was another one, would be like Gordon and the Fat Controller in the carriage yard, and Gordon's like,
"Why are we here, sir? What is this about? I know you've taken me off the Express. Now you want to gloat about it."
And the Fat Controller's like, "No, Gordon, I've got something to show you." And then he like gestures to the workmen, and they pull a tarp off of this train. He's like, "I present to you your new coaches." And Gordon's like,
maybe this retirement thing isn't so bad after all.
I should have retired years ago.
Yeah.
Finally, now I can actually have private coaches like Spencer.
Yeah, that's great. But those look really cool though. I like I like that they'd like match him. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I didn't use actual Northwestern, well, for my series, Northwestern blue, though. I used a little lighter tone. So you can hear my shadows in the way.
Yeah, whatever it is, it looks really good. It looks like
it does like, work with the classic take along colors, though.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah, no, it looks great.
Thank you. I also made custom, because for take along, there isn't like express coaches. So I made red ones and green ones, like with the line.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's the like single biggest oversight take along ever made. Is that like how did they not do that? How did they not make?
I know.
Also, this is too little, too late. But at 10:49, Asher said, "I want to join the party."
Oh. Well. Alrighty.
That was like 40 minutes ago. Are you still watching, Asher? We're sorry.
All right, I'm going to start on the lining. Blue.
Very good.
Northwestern blue. Where is it?
Yeah, I really want to get back to making engines and stuff. Because, like, I like working on the Tugs TWR stuff, but I really, the sooner I make, like, a full fleet of Thomas engines in the new style, the sooner I can make, like, an episode in that style. And that's really what I want to do. It's like, I have so many stories. The other day, I literally went through and created a spreadsheet of every single story I've ever written since 2016. And
really?
Yeah, and there are 55 items on that list. So I now have an official number of how many projects I have canceled, and it's around 40 or 50. It's like in that area.
Gosh.
So you can imagine. Yeah, it is a lot. So you can imagine how much material I have to work with. Like how many. Like I'm so eager to establish a style so that I can finally just start making videos. Because I know exactly what I want to make. I have like so many stories written. I just need to produce them. Like they're all waiting in the wings for me to do. So they exist, but they only exist in my own head, and I want them to finally exist, to the public. And I really do like. Even though that's a very long list, it's a list that I intend to return to. So like all those projects, I do want to revive them and actually bring them to life. So hopefully, everything I ever wrote, including the stuff that people knew about but never saw, that stuff will eventually be produced. It's just that I have to finally decide what style to produce it in. And I think that's going to be the TV series Wooden Railway Big Gordon style. That's kind of I think that's my favorite, so far. That and like all the more realistic stuff I'll do in Roblox with that Nowhere series. So it's like those two. Those are like my two. Going forward, those are going to be my two styles. When I want to make a realistic Railway Series-esque Thomas story, that's going in the big kind of chronological, kind of overarching series, which is Nowhere, which tells everything from the beginning, starting in 1915. Like that's going to be a really big epic. Whereas, when I want to tell a more self-contained story, that maybe takes place somewhere else in the timeline, like in the 60s or the 50s or something. Then that's what I'll use this, the TV series Wooden Railway style for. Like that's more for those types of stories. And most of the stories I've written are in that style, where it's like I could tell them in maybe a 3 or 4 part story. So like they're more self-contained. And once I have enough models like this Gordon, I'll be able to actually do that. So it'll be pretty cool.
Here's the lining that I've got so far.
Oh, that looks great. Here, could you hold it a little bit closer?
Yeah.
That looks great. Did you freehand that?
Yeah, I'm freehanding.
That looks really good. That's like it's I would struggle to freehand that nicely.
Thank you. Yeah, I freehand everything. Besides, like, if I print out faces.
Right.
but that's the only thing I don't freehand. Which is
Yeah.
also kind of not the best because it's not always accurate on both sides of the engine. But
Yeah, but
it's accurate enough.
you can never see both sides at once, though, can you? So
Yeah, that's
no one knows. But yeah, I mean, I think. Hold on, let me put the funnel in place first. Got to focus here. Focus. What was I saying? Something about freehanding. The thing is, I used to freehand everything. Like back in 2016, I made all my models that way. But and usually that's how I like to do things, is by hand. But the one area I've compromised in is the smaller details, because printing out decals I've found is just so much like cleaner. It's just so it's so satisfying. At least on the models that I make, because they have a lot of like flat surfaces that have like textures on them. Like say the side of Gordon's cab, right? The way they would do that in the factories, they just stamp it right on there, right? So like, I kind of like it looking very, very sharp lines and, very clear and very, a lot of just looking very, very factory, versus if I were to do it freehand, then it would be kind of different. But I also like the look of something being freehanded because it indicates that effort has been put in. It's like, it's one thing to just, because it's admittedly a lot easier to do everything digitally. Whereas like they're literally freehanding it, that takes some effort, to do that. I mean, it takes effort to do digital stuff as well, but it's a different type of effort.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like I've just gotten so much better than when I started with freehand, like the lines and stuff. I've just grown so much from just doing it. Like,
yeah, it sounds cheesy, but I mean, practice does make perfect. I mean, that really is what it is.
Honestly.
Scarlo the old engine / Asher says, "I'm the only one watching. Sad."
Well, Asher, if you have under 100 subscribers, that's what happens.
What does that even mean? What does that even? What even is that?
People don't watch my content, Mr. Big User.
So if you have 101, does that 99 versus 101 is like a huge difference?
There's a huge difference there, Lemmy. If you don't know, there's a huge difference.
Of course. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when my channel first got a lot of attention, I mean, there was this one weird time with the one video I made that got 1 million views for some reason. But that was
really?
Yeah, I have no idea what that was about. Because all my other videos got like 300 views, but then that one video got 1 million. I have no idea. But the point being, apart from that, all of my videos pretty much. I didn't get a lot of attention until 2016. And you got to realize I started my channel in 2011. So I'd been going for, 5 years? Yeah. So, your channel's what, you say 4 years old?
4 or 5 years old. I can't remember when I started it. It's on my YouTube channel. It's in the About section.
Yeah. I mean, so, it's, any day now. I mean, but also, the key is not caring about that, because
I don't care. I just want people to like the content I make. I don't care if you subscribe to my channel. I just hope people, at least one person likes what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, if you put something out there, that will undeniably that will happen, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see everything. It's like, well, even if something isn't perfect, it's like it's still. If it wasn't out there, that would be worse. It's better to release everything. It's like, and that's the thing. It's like how I was talking to you earlier about this episode I'm working on right now that's about to come out. This is not my best work, and I was pretty clear about that already. But and I was really going back and forth about this. I was thinking, do I want to release this when I know it's not my best work? But I talked to a lot of friends about this, and they, not really a lot, a handful of friends. And the response was always the same, which is, look, Lemmy, people are going to like it no matter what it is. It's not, it's not, you're going to be your harshest critic, right? And the important thing is just release it, because everything is worth releasing. If you make something and it'll make people happy, release it, right? And it's such a simple answer, but it's so easy to forget that when you're hyper focused on like, oh, is this good enough? Is this good enough? And it's like, everything is good enough, literally everything. I'd kind of forgotten that, or I was kind of ignoring that, but that has always been my philosophy is, share things. If you have something of value to show people, then share it. You shouldn't hide it away, because no matter what, the internet is too big for somebody not to love it. There's got to be somebody out there that if you release something, it'll make their day. It'll be their whole world. It's like kind of like we were talking to. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, Scottish, about like Sodor Dark Times. Is like, to me, right? I've not really seen that guy's series. I see it. My first thought when I think of it is ripoff. Which, no disrespect. Again, like I'm sure that he's taken it in a really interesting direction and made it amazing. And I'm glad that he does it, and he should be proud of himself. However, when I first think of it, I kind of roll my eyes, right? But for you brought it up in the middle of conversation, and you actually were inspired by it, and I had had interest in it. And the two of us have totally different relationships to that piece of art, and yet they're both totally valid. And that's the thing. It's like you could release something that some people would just totally roll their eyes and not even care about, but some people would absolutely love it. And everything is that way. I'm sure there are people who are just huge fans of his. I mean, there's got to be. And so it's like, that's the thing. It's just everything's worth releasing. Everything. And I have to remember that, because I have the tendency because I can picture what the best version looks like. And if it doesn't look like that, then I feel like I've fallen short. And the thing is, you can't think that way. You just got to think making something is better than making nothing. It's as simple as that. It's very straightforward. It's just make a thing, release it, and people will smile. That's it. There's nothing complicated about it. Yeah. That's something that I've tried to remember. So this new story is going to be coming out soon. Probably, by the time this stream is over, I'm probably going to go and edit that some more. It's very close. Like, it's kind of like there's a few tweaks I have to make, and then literally all I have left to do is add the music and add the sound effects, which sounds like a lot, but it's like, that's all, like, all the dialogue is edited, all the scenes are filmed, everything is like, it's all like, right now, this episode I'm talking about, if you were to watch it through from the beginning to the end, it would all make sense. It would work. It would be great. It's just that it doesn't have the sound effects and the music. So basically, I just have to add that stuff on. But like, the other 99% of it is done. So it's very close. It's essentially, at this point, it's almost like editing an episode of Character Gallery. So it shouldn't be long. Yeah. Except without all the it's editing an episode of Character Gallery without all the dialogue and all that stuff. Like, just putting on the nice little sound effects and music afterwards. But anyway, I feel like I've said the same thing 5 different ways. And it's taken 30 minutes to do it. But you get my point.
Yeah, most definitely. I finished the blue lines on James. I'm going to do the Northwestern on the tender, and then the dome, then the 5.
That's great.
And I'm pretty much finished.
I gotta say, blue and red on James is just a great combination. Like, I kind of see it. But I hope I'm not taking somebody's idea here. I feel like I talked about this with Ted at some point, but I've always kind of looked at it like, when James finally incorporates blue into his livery, that's like him finally kind of showing enough respect to the railway and to the other engines and to the Pack Controller to be like, all right, fine, I'll do the blue thing. Are you happy now? But it's like just the lining. Because he was the one who, I feel like, there's this awkwardness around the first 5 or 6 engines, the first 5 engines, really. where they all kind of like look at James as the one who broke the tradition. Henry was like, I don't understand why he went easy on you, James. I mean, I had to go blue. That was the rule. And Gordon's like, yes, and I would have stayed in GNR green if I could. But no, I had to follow the rules. Why is it that he went easy on you? It's because you're the favorite. That's what it is. And James is just like, look, I just look so much better in red. None of you would have rocked red. And Henry, you weren't really rocking green either, let's be honest. Oh, but they all kind of look at him like he's the one who broke the tradition. And they're like, why did you get to be red? We all had to be blue. I kind of see it like James is like the fifth child. He's like the youngest in the fat, they're all kind of like the fat controller's children. And so, when Thomas and Edward arrived, he was very tough on them. When Henry arrived, he was tough on him. And when Gordon arrived, he was tough on him. But then James arrives and he's like, you know what? I was way too hard on the other engines. All right, you get to be red. Who cares? He's finally just mellowed out. And Henry's blue, and he's like, "What the fuck? Why can't I be green?" And it takes him another like 20 years to finally be like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going back. But he doesn't have the confidence to do it, so he keeps like every single week. He's like, I'm going back to green. I'm gonna do it. Sure you are, Henry. It seems to be. Let's see, what year is it? 1927. Yes, you've got another 20 years to go. And Henry's just like, I'm going to do it, really. I'm going back to green. When exactly? Soon, tomorrow. I'm going to talk to the Fat Controller about it tomorrow. Sure you are. I'm sure you are. And then it doesn't happen until Troublesome Engines. So.
Yeah. What's your feeling on Henry? Because I like him pulling like goods trains, but I also really like him pulling passengers. I like him pulling passenger trains more than I like Gordon pulling passenger trains.
I think that's interesting. I think with Henry, I don't see him as like I think Henry does a lot of the goods work after he's rebuilt, but also in terms of what he prefers. Honestly, I think there are two sides to this. I think Henry prefers any work that is safe and peaceful, and he wants to coast through the countryside at a moderate speed and enjoy nature and enjoy the wind blowing by and in the morning sky and the birds chirping. Henry, deep down, that's what he wants, and whatever train allows him to do it is that. I think that's why he likes the Kipper. I know that he kind of complains about it sometimes, and the other engines really look down on it. And I think Henry is embarrassed about the fact that they look down on it. So he's like, oh yes, I hate it as well. It's not great. No, I wish I didn't have to take it, but somebody has to, right? But then when he's actually out there taking the Kipper, he loves it. That's the truth, is that he loves being out in the morning, and he loves seeing kind of the dew on the grass and the kind of the mist of the morning, that's that to him. He wants that peaceful Zen experience. That's what he cares about. So any train that lets him do that is what he cares about. So honestly, I don't know if he does prefer passengers or freight. I think either one, as long as it gives that to him. However, he would never admit that to Gordon and James. He would argue hard line. Oh, of course, I always prefer passenger trains. Why would I ever pull a goods train? Name one time I've pulled a goods train willingly. No, don't answer that. I think that he would give very different answers depending on who he's talking to. But if he was with Edward and could really open up, and Gordon and James wouldn't overhear, Henry's like, well, the Kipper's not all that bad.
Yeah. I feel like the only couple of engines that would know that would be Edward, Percy, because he'd be up at the same time and witness Henry doing that.
Yeah.
And then maybe Thomas.
Yeah. I think with Thomas it would be Henry wouldn't trust him enough to tell him, but Thomas I think is quite emotionally intuitive, so he'd be able to kind of tell. And so Henry would pass by with the goods train one day and Thomas is just barely getting up to Knapford with his first passenger train of the day, and he sees Henry going by and can see the expression on his face, and Thomas is like, really? He loves it. Clearly he loves it. And it says Danny and Clarabelle, he's like, he's been lying to us the whole time. I we had a 3-hour argument the other day about how he hates pulling goods trains, and look at him, and so then one day I imagine like Henry would maybe stop for like a drink of water or a Tidmouth or something, and Thomas would be there too, and Thomas, and Henry would be like really exhausted, and Thomas would be like, oh, where you been, Henry? And Henry's like, oh, pulling the kipper, dreadful stuff. Oh, is that right? It's dreadful, huh? You don't like it? Don't like it at all? Don't like it even a little bit? And Henry's just like, no, certainly not. And Thomas is like, he's just kind of like pulling his leg, right? He's like, really, that's strange. And then he kind of looks over to Gordon and James, and he's like, that's strange, Henry, because I noticed you smiling when you were pulling it the other day. Just keep your voice down. And Thomas is just like, I knew it. This is just about them, isn't it? You love the thing, but you won't admit it. And, and Henry's just like, yes, okay, fine. I'm trying to save face. Is that what you wanted? Fine. I'm pouring out my true motivations to you. Are you happy? Yeah, actually, I'm pretty happy. I just wanted to do this. I could see that being the case. Whereas Percy would personally shunt the kipper, I think, and he would know how Henry feels about it, and he would be like, it's almost like him packing Henry a sack lunch for work. He's just like, all right, you're all ready to go, Henry. Have fun. And Henry's just like, thank you, Percy. I will. And he leaves grandly with the kipper, and his theme plays, and he just charges off into the morning light. And so,
speaking of themes, who do you think has the best one?
It's a very difficult question. It's interesting because some of the themes reflect the characters very well, and some of them don't. I think the one I like the sound of the best. I think the best sounding one is probably either James's or Henry's. But I think my favorite would probably not necessarily be based on how it sounds, but more how well it matches the character. I think Duck's fits very well. It fits
Duck
him.
is a good one.
Because I love how it's so punctual and methodical, like him. Like the way that it sounds, it's just like it's like literally the beats are just so there's clearly a dun 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 dun. It's almost like I can imagine Duck working in a factory at a conveyor belt on an assembly line, and literally stamping something every time the beat plays, and having a smile on his face the whole 10-hour workday. I could imagine that, because I think that the theme just really matches. It just sounds, it's so James's theme is all over the place. James's theme is da 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 da. It's so jazzy and just ridiculously, just it's going here and there and there and here and here and there and everywhere, right? Whereas Ducks is just da da dun 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 da da dun 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 da 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 dun 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 dun. It's so dignified and graceful, and at the same time it's just so, it has the same pace the entire time. It's just so predictable, like him. And then there's some characters that don't necessarily Donald and Douglas doesn't necessarily theirs is just very Scottish. But that's about it. I guess it is very upbeat and lively, and it's just kind of like it's it's very you can't keep us down, very much like they've got to bring in their step, so it does fit them very well. Edwards is kind of doddering and very kind of slow and very fast paced, but in the way that Edwards' theme, it sounds like a short man walking fast. He's trying to he has to how do I describe this? If Gordon was a human, if he were walking along, he would take large strides and he would go dunt, 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 dun 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 dun. Like, he can walk along at a quick pace and only hit a beat every so often because he's got long legs and he can just, he can walk. He's
Yeah.
a big guy. But Edward has to be like dun 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 dun, because Edward has to be like, Edward is covering the same ground, going the same speed as Gordon, but he's going as quickly as he can because his legs aren't quite as long because he's a lot older and he's just shorter in general, and he's trying to like really, he's kind of losing his breath in the process, right? So he's kind of like, but at the same time, he's got a lot of energy. He's very positive. He's very cheerful, and he's not complaining about having to walk twice as fast, despite the fact that he's covering the same ground. But he's just kind of like, that's what I get off of his theme. But Gordon's theme is always like, the other one is like the first one I think of is the new series one because I love it. Like I think Gordon's new series theme is better. The kind of like, dun 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 dun. It's like really good, but I do like because it's more dignified. The one from the classic series is kind of crazy, like trumpet bearing, red carpet kind of. I love that theme, but it's also Gordon running full speed everywhere all the time, and he's not overdoing that, right? And to be fair, they do slow it down sometimes and go. But it's kind of like when you slow it down, it kind of becomes pathetic. It kind of starts sounding more like dopey, and that's usually how it's used, right? It's like Gordon's more like he's kind of like he's kind of making a fool of himself. Like after he does something stupid, it kind of goes bum 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 bum. So I think that you can play the new series one slowly and it still sounds awesome, right? It's like it doesn't have to go like dun 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 dun. It can just go like dun 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 dun, and that'll still sound great, and it'll still sound dignified. It'll sound like even when Gordon is walking at a slow pace and isn't even like being all that noticeable, he still has this grand energy around him. Like he can't help it. When he breathes, he sounds like a king. It's as simple as that, right? So like I love the new series Gordon theme. That's one of my favorites.
Mine would probably be not Donald and Douglas. I love Donald and Douglas's theme, but it's not going to be Donald and Douglas's.
I get that. Like Gordon's theme isn't my favorite, even though I love it a lot. It'd probably be. I think it might be Ducks. I think that is my answer.
Ducks is I love Ducks' theme.
Yeah, it is.
James is, like you said, is also a really good one.
Yeah, it is. That's great.
Henry's. I like Henry's theme a lot. Henry's is probably my favorite.
I think that's the Henry's theme is probably one of the biggest reasons the Flying Kipper is so high on so many people's lists of favorite episodes. Like it really is, everyone loves it. Also Scottish. I hate to say this, but at the same time I don't. It's not like I'm skipping on you because it's been 3 hours. But I think in maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I've got to get back to editing that episode because it is close.
How about we do this, Lemmy? How about we end it at 3 hours?
Yeah, that's the way to do it. All right. So
cool.
We have 2 minutes and basically 2 minutes left. So
here's the James. Finished
that looks brilliant. That looks so great.
I gave him the gold dome, I gave him the gold dome and I get a little gold ring on the funnel.
He pops so much more with the yellow on there. Like now that I see like the lettering and stuff, like it just ties it all together. Like it looks so good.
I gotta do this before the stream ends. I gotta pop him in with the others.
Yeah. And I have finished OJ's funnel during this stream as well.
That's good.
Yeah, indeed it is.
Here we go. We got 9 of the 11.
Ah, brilliant.
I made Percy like really dirty. I covered him in like coal dust.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he really should be, because that's like, even if Percy didn't have particularly dirty work, I feel like he'd still get dirty a lot, because he's the kid who goes out and plays in the mud. That's like who he is, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, we got 1 minute left. I guess we should wrap up.
Yeah.
Let's give our names like you do on Character Gallery. I've been the Scottish Twins, aka Scottish.
And I've been Master of the Lemons, aka Lemmy.
Thank you for joining this stream, Lemmy, for my birthday, and thank you for everyone watching for my birthday, which is going to be in a week's time from today. So if you want to wish me a happy birthday on Twitter or something, you can go do that.
I will wish you happy birthday right now, Scottish. Happy birthday. I'll also try my best. Happy birthday on your birthday. If I remember, I am terrible at remembering things, but
that's
happy
fine.
birthday.
I mean, yeah, you missed the stream the other day. So, but anyway, we got 8 seconds. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Asher, for being here. See you, Lemmy. Thank you for having fun and just chilling with me.